In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Bona. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, g'day and welcome to episode 131 of the Bonafide podcast. It is great to have your company. Thank you so much for joining us, no matter where you are, in your lounge room, in your office, in your car, up a ladder, in a truck. We love your company, and we want to thank you for being part of the Bonafide family. And look, it really works well when you jump in. So get involved. Get involved with us. Leave us a message on 0291 289311. Send us your thoughts to community@bonafidepod, all one word, bonafidepod.com. And remember to follow, subscribe to the show on whatever app you listen to, because it does help us find new audiences. Just a reminder, you can watch this episode and all our others on video, on Spotify, or of course on YouTube. So Millennial joins me again in her favourite brown jacket. Hello to you.
Hello.
Are you going all right? Are you surviving? It's cold.
Yeah, it's
cold.
chilly. It's very
It's sunny
cold.
in Sydney, but it's chilly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very cold. Not enjoying it at all.
No wonder you love that brown jacket.
Yeah, it's thick as. It's so good.
I know, and I've washed it and tried to dry it, and it takes 4 days.
Yeah.
It really is a tough thing to dry, that thing.
But it's good. It's worth it if you get cold.
It is very much worth it, but also our merch is, and we've got lots of merch. The Millennial will work out ways we can give it away, but those hoodies were popular at casino, weren't they? So there's a Bonafide podcast hoodie, there's beanies, there's beer holders, and there's cups. I've got my cup down here. So get involved and be part of the family, and please invite other people to be part of the family as well. Coming up, we're going to have a look at the state of the nation as far as economics is concerned. Shane Oliver, Chief Economist with AMP, joins us again, one of our regulars. The housing prices around Australia are starting to fall. Is that a good thing? Has the government's 5% deposit to first home buyers worked? Or could it lead to what's known as negative equity? If you still pay too much for a house, your repayments are too high for the house and what it's worth if you go to sell it. We'll have a look at that a little bit later on. Hey, Millennial, we love Adam Shan, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Adam Shan has his own podcast called Real Crime, and he's written many, many books. Today, we're going to have a look at some of Australia's unsolved mysteries, but we're going to focus on a mystery, a murder that is so bizarre you won't believe it. Kelsey, have you heard of the very strange murder of Herman Rockefeller?
No.
Okay, well, we go back to 2010, and Herman Rockefeller was a very wealthy businessman. He was a property developer. He was into banking. He had his finger in a few pies in association with his brother. Multi-millionaire, but he was murdered under what can only be described as the most sordid and bizarre circumstances you'll ever hear. This is a story that you're going to be glued to and leaning forward to. And I'm looking forward to bringing you that story with Adam Shan. And we're also, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about some of Australia's unsolved mysteries that desperately need solving. Like, for example, Kelsey, little William Tyrrell. Where is this little boy?
Yeah.
He's kind of become the Australian Madeleine McCann story. Is he alive? Has he been abducted? Is he living somewhere, or has he perished? What has happened to this poor little boy in the Spider-Man suit? And other unsolved mysteries that Adam's currently looking into. And I know we're sort of carrying on a bit here, but Adam was intrigued to know that we'd been to casino, and he says that is the scene of one of the biggest crime BS stories ever, the Chopper Read Sid Collins story. Adam says it's bull. And look, if you've got little ones around that are within earshot of the podcast, you may like to put the earplugs in for the man cave because it gets a little bit adult, doesn't it, Kels?
Yes, unexpectedly.
And Granny Sue joins us with the vice captain, and he's in his brand new studio at Evans Hastings.
Yeah, it's very fancy.
So let's have a look at some of the headlines that we're looking at today and some of the news stories that don't get major publicity but we think should. Kelsey, this story from Coles. I want to know your thoughts on this. Coles has announced a nationwide checkout move that they say is going to help millions of Australians that are doing it tough. Coles shoppers are going to be able to donate to food relief charities as of now. And the supermarket giant's launching a nationwide appeal aimed at helping millions of Aussies who are struggling to put food on the table. Is this a genuine move by Coles to help needy people, or is it just PR, Kelsey?
Obviously, it's PR. If they really wanted to help people, they could just donate the food themselves.
They do support an organisation called Second Bite, which is a charity where food that isn't sold, that's not perishable, is given to charity. And Woolies has a similar thing in place. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. We're already doing it tough. Most Aussies are doing it tough at the moment. Last year, Coles reported a net profit after tax of $1.079 billion. So obviously this is good, and, you know, knowing Australians will get behind this and will help. But I just think, like, if you really wanted to help, you could feed these people yourself if you really wanted to.
Well, take less money out of your profit for your shareholders. You see, that's the thing. Woolies and Coles have shareholders, and we talked about Qantas. What do you do when you have shareholders that want a return on their investment, but you also cater to customers who want cheaper prices and better service?
That's the question.
That's the question. And do you believe that if you use the self-serve checkout at Coles and Woolies, you should get cheaper groceries? If you're doing half the work, shouldn't you get a discount, Kels?
Well, in an ideal world, but that will never happen.
Well, then put more people at the checkouts. Get rid of the self-serve unless it is genuinely, well, they say, is it 12 items or is that the express lane? I forget.
That's the express lane.
Yeah. Or maybe you could have a premium aisle where there's a checkout and someone who packs your bag and someone who walks around with your trolley and, well, they do that with the home delivery, don't they? But maybe if you're prepared to pay a premium gold, diamond, platinum membership price for Coles or Woolies products, you should get better service.
As somebody that has social anxiety, I like self-checkout because I don't have to talk to anyone. I want to keep it around for us people. But
since when have you had social anxiety? You're not shy. You talk to anyone.
Doesn't mean I like it.
Oh, fair enough too.
No, but I just get nervous going to new places and speaking to new people. Doesn't mean I can't do it. I just get nervous doing it. So I like the self-checkout, especially when you're having a bad day. You know, you just want to go in, grab your stuff. You don't want to have to be friendly. You just want to, you know, you're in your own path.
You don't have to be friendly. You can say good morning. How are you? And that's all. That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
To the person on minimum wage who's checking out your groceries.
But that's why I go to the self-checkout. So then I don't have to think about being nice. I can just stay in my own lane.
And as we're going to discover again, folks, and this is coming up later in the man cave, it gives you a better chance, Kelsey, to steal things, doesn't it?
Stick it to the man.
There's a story that I'm dying to bring up on the man cave, not this week, but maybe next week, especially if we get Granny Sue back. There was a Reddit thread that caught my eye. It was started by an Australian PE teacher who declared that today's children were the weakest, most entitled, and least capable generation in human history. Wow. It's a provocative headline. But what interests me wasn't the post itself. It was the hundreds of teachers and coaches and parents who jumped onto the discussion afterwards. The commentary all described children convinced that they're elite athletes despite doing very little training, students who become angry when they're corrected. You know, we've talked about giving our kids blue ribbons and gold stars and certificates just for participating. But in the real world, in a real job, if you're not up to par, you get the punt. Are we giving our kids bad life skill training? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't have a kid, so it's hard to comment. But I do think, though, when I was reading this story, I had flashbacks to the really early version of Australian Idol. And I always used to think these poor people have been told by people in their life that they're really good at singing, right? And some of them were really young people as well. And I honestly thought it was cruel that these people had gone their whole lives believing that they were incredible singers only to be absolutely destroyed when they were criticized for it. And you can tell that it was actually a real shock for them to hear that, you know, in fact, they're not actually that as good as they think. So I think it's important to be honest with your kids. Obviously, you know, support them and encourage them to try new things until they maybe find the thing they actually are good at. But I don't think it does anyone any good to pretend your kid is good at something when they're clearly not. It just creates a really false sense of security, honestly, because there's no way in the world is going to let them keep thinking that.
The world does not reward you for mediocrity or less than mediocrity. So maybe we are giving our kids false hope. But it's funny you should mention Idol and The Voice. Well, not necessarily The Voice. The Voice, all the contestants there are pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe if we've got time, let's have a look at a contestant that's appeared on the talent show that's delusional and really shouldn't be there. This is just an example.
I feel the earth move, fall on my feet. I feel the sky come falling down.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Who convinced them that they had talent? There was a talent show, a very early Australian talent show, and we've had them for years. And it was called Pot of Gold, Kelsey. I wonder if you could find it. It'd be there somewhere. And the scathing judge was Bernard King. Now, do you know who Bernard King is?
No.
Oh, Bernard King was a very flamboyant Melburnian. He was a cooking expert. He had his own cooking show. But he was a judge on, I think it was Pot of Gold. Was that Pot of Gold with Tommy Hanlon Jr.? It was one of the talent shows. And he was scathing. He told it like it was. And we used to tune in to hear Bernard King rip someone to shreds. That was part of the entertainment.
Yeah. There's always that type. There's always a Simon Cowell or a, you know, Carl Sanderlands on those programs exactly for that purpose.
A protagonist. And here was another educational story that interested me today. There are educators around Australia, including education ministers, that are trying to encourage kids to go through what's called the digital detox. And they want people to get off computers and keyboards and start using pen and paper again. Australian education ministers are actively considering a return to the pen and paper testing for the national NAPLAN assessments after the latest results revealed a sharp decline in student writing and literacy skills. The push follows growing concern from both state and federal officials that digital learning and the tablets and all that excessive screen time are negatively impacting how children process information. Now, I'm going to tell you this, Kels. When I actually do take notes, writing with a pen on a piece of paper, the information sinks into my brain a lot better. Are you like that?
Yeah, that's how brains work.
However, handwriting, back when I was at school, and you tell me if it was the same for you, was a massive part of the curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
And we had cursive writing, running writing, and underneath the page there was a piece of cardboard with slanted lines on it that you had to use to guide you to get. Yeah. And handwriting was massive. The only time in today's world where you need to pick up a pen is when you're signing your signature. Everything else is on a keyboard. Is handwriting still relevant, Kelsey?
I think it is. I think you have to know how to write. But I mean, at the end of the day, if these kids are going into worlds where they are going to be using the keyboard, then it's still a skill they have to learn. You know, there's no point, you know, trying to make handwriting the number one goal when in fact, it might end up being like learning Pythagoras' theorem. We all had to learn it in school and none of us actually use it.
What's Pythagoras' theorem?
Oh, I can't remember. It's to find
Can I tell
the
you?
angle of triangles.
The square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides.
And it's
Now-
hypotenuse.
Hippopotamus. Sorry, the square of the hippopotamus. I've never used that in my life, but it's in my brain.
Yeah.
Very strange brain, by the way. What are your thoughts? Leave us a message, 0291289311, or send us a message. What was the old saying? The pen is mightier than the sword?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless, of course, you can't write with a sword, can you?
Well, you could
You
get
could stab
creative.
someone. You could stab someone with a pen.
Now, Luke, I wanted to to bring you this story.
Okay.
So, Luke, I don't know if you know this, but they have found a way to remotely control cockroaches.
Okay. I'm interested.
So, they put electrodes in the cockroach and they can essentially remote control them. Now, the reason why they do this, right, is because the goal is to eventually fit them with cameras, right? So then when...
So you can see what's under the oven and under the fridge.
No, mainly to be used in disaster zones,
Oh, yeah.
Search and rescue
Because they
operations.
can survive anything.
Exactly. They're pretty sturdy creatures. But scientists in Singapore and Japan, they've gone a step further now because what they've realised is in disaster zones, there's flooding usually involved in some of them. Cockroaches, they can't breathe underwater, right? So they hit a wall there. So what they've done, Luke...
How long can a cockroach hold its breath underwater?
I've got no idea. But
I'm going to find out. Keep talking.
what they've done is they have developed 3D printed, watertight scuba suits for cockroaches.
No.
They have scuba suits for cockroaches, and this essentially allows them to be remote controlled whilst they're underwater as well. So they can go into flood affected disaster zones and do search and rescue in those zones. Because think about how that's pretty smart, don't you reckon?
I think it is very smart, but you want to know what I just found on AI?
What?
A cockroach can survive being submerged underwater for about 30 to 40 minutes. They do not drown right away because they can seal off their breathing tubes and hold their breath, which makes it virtually impossible to kill them by simply flushing them down a drain or a toilet.
Well, maybe the electrodes that they fit onto these cockroaches to remotely control them, maybe that is also another, I guess, barrier. But look at these scuba suits. They look alien-like, don't they?
Oh, wow. That's sensational.
Yeah, so it's a silicone 3D printed little suit, right? And it's got essentially like an oxygen tank in the back of it because the back of the cockroach is where it's all breathing tubes, holes, whatever the gills, I don't know what you call them. And the fun thing about this, Luke, is disaster zone search and rescue is just the start of this. The end goal for these cockroaches is to make them spacesuits and to send them out into space and so they can explore other planets for us. How cool is that?
I think that's the story of the day, Kelsey. You've done very, very well. I am. That's the Kelsey Menzies story of the day. By the way, cockroaches, according to AI, they don't have lungs. They do not breathe through their noses or their mouths. Their air enters the body through small tubes on their sides, and guess what they're called?
What?
It's either pronounced spiracles or spiracles. Spiracles.
Spiracles.
Spiracles. They close these breathing holes to keep water out and lock air inside. They have very little use for oxygen.
God, they're pretty nifty little creatures, aren't they? Bloody annoying when they're in your house.
Well, they
Clearly
reckon
useful.
They reckon that when the nukes come down and get us, it'll be the cockroaches
Yeah, of course.
and politicians that will survive.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's an email from, this is Jurien. Where's Jurien from again?
Netherlands.
Yeah, from the Netherlands, which is near Holland, where they speak Dutch. What's it say?
So I'm going to summarise his email because it's quite lengthy. Now, he made it clear that he's not a pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian supporter, but he did find Alex Rivchin a little bit unsettling. He just kind of described him as one-sided, focusing on what the bullies did while portraying Israel as the innocent party. Now, of course, Alex, he's a biased speaker in this, right? Now, let me just go on. So, in Zherjan's view, there is no single culprit. Both sides have driven a cause and effect cycle of escalation since Israeli politics shifted rightward in the early 1980s. They also stress that Palestinian civilians shouldn't be conflated with Hezbollah and cite personal memory of Dutch news coverage in their youth showing settlers shooting Palestinian children who threw rocks after land seizures. So this is from Zherjan's own lived experience. He also referenced reports of IDF killing journalists and children as evidence of what they see as brutal conduct, which is what you kind of raised with Alex as well, the David and Goliath thing. And they
Old
kind
Testament.
and they kind of connect the rising anti-Semitism in the Netherlands to two factors: the integration of Moroccan communities and public reaction to news coverage of IDF actions in Gaza, and plus they have resentment over Jewish success in business and banking. But their final closing point is that every escalation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict fuels anti-Jewish sentiment across the Arab world and shrinks space for nuanced dialogue. And I've got to agree with you there, Zherjan, and hopefully we'll get somebody from the, I guess, Palestinian side of this argument
100%.
to give their point of view on
I
the
would
whole
love that.
situation.
And we will, and we can send Zherjan's email off to Alexander, see if he wants to reply. But I do think we need to get somebody from the other side on, all in the name of balance. So we appreciate your feedback. By the way, fun fact: what is the tallest race on the planet by average?
No idea.
Well, I knew this, and I don't know how I remembered it. And I told your mum, months and months ago. Could have been last year. And she said, oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah. It came up at her trivia night,
Oh, yeah.
the night that I told her.
Oh, nice.
And it's the Dutch.
Oh, that makes
On
sense.
average, Google it now, just make
No,
sure.
I believe you. I believe you. If she got it
The
right
da-
at trivia night, then
But she said, I just found this out. So
She knew
that
it.
stuck it to the 20-year-old cheaters down there on table 8 or wherever they are.
Now, Luke, you said to me recently while we were in casino, well, you didn't say it to me. I overheard this in a conversation and I regretted eavesdropping immediately. You said that you sometimes will sit down to wee. Is that correct?
But listen, it wasn't a casino. We did a whole thing on this with the good doctor last year. We actually spoke to Dr. Philip Norrie on one of his first chats with us on the podcast, and that came up. Is that where you're getting it from? I don't remember talking
No,
about
I definitely heard you speaking to somebody about this in casino because you said that Jacob has now taken your advice and he said it's way better than standing up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Jacob, my son now is a sit-down weir. And it gives...
Sorry, Jacob.
It means he can look at his YouTube clips and his TikToks and emails while he's on, and he says it helps with the flow. And then he says he never needed a number 2, but he's there long enough, and next thing you know, his number 2 happens. But
Stop. Look, the reason why...
Dr. Philip Norrie said when you sit down wee, next thing you know, you get a second flow. Or that might be for just people over 60
I don't know. But
with a prostate the size of a walnut. I'm not sure.
Well, there was a comment on the YouTube channel which made me think of this again. And this was a comment on the interview you had with Rob McKnight. He said, and now you speak up. Sorry, looks like you sit down to piss. And since then, I've discovered that it's actually better for men to sit down to pee. And not only that, a very well-known UFC fighter, Paddy Pimblett, he was doing an interview and he said that, he sits down to wee and it's way better. A Dr. Joshua Gonzalez, he's a urologist, he made a video off the back of that interview and he said, he explained why it's better to sit down to wee and it's better for your prostate and your urinary health, essentially because it allows for the pelvic floor muscles to fully relax and you've got better emptying and better post-void dribbling, which I don't even want to think about what that means.
Well, can I just tell you one thing, Kelsey, before we move on? Yes, the sitting down to wee thing, I am a sit-down weeer now. I'm a member of the sit-down wee party. However, there is a drawback because when we stand up, because we've got a little tap, a prong.
Yeah, it's okay.
As Kenny said in the movie. Because when we stand up, that gives me an opportunity to clean the toilet, wee the skid marks off the porcelain. And you aim for the skiddies and you've emptied your bladder and cleaned the toilet at the same time.
Oh, God.
And you can't do that sitting down. Shall we
Hey.
move on?
Yes, please.
It's better
Please.
than peeing in your wardrobe, dreaming you're at the urinal at the Bathurst Rugby Leagues Club.
Yes, we don't need to go into that again. Now, Callum sent us a video to watch. He wanted us to know if we had come across Heather, spelled Heatha,
Heather.
yet. Heather. She's making waves, right? She's a real estate agent, and she's making waves for her unique selling tactics. Let's have a listen.
Hi, Heather from Harcourts here. Just put the for sale sign up on this little cutie. Oh, look at it. Commuter special, mate, offers over $468. You betcha. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, modern bathroom, separate toilet. It's all here. It's neat, it's sweet, it's easy to heat. See you at the open home this weekend.
She's got a Kiwi accent, yes.
I am sold, Heather. I'm sold. This is how I want all my real estate advertising to come to me.
She's a character. Does she sell many properties?
Well, she's been in the industry since 1994, and it definitely says she's pretty accomplished. But she does say she tries to see the funny side of life on a daily basis. And again, I think we need a little bit of more of that in the real estate industry.
Jim wanted to throw his funeral song into the mix.
And he said, I have always wanted the jingle from Life Be In It ads featuring Norm back in the late 70s to be played at mine. I've got no idea what this song is.
Okay, pull it up. Life Be In It, 1970s
No, you have to
ad.
sing it. You have to sing it for copyright purposes.
Da, 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 ba, ba, da, da, ba, da, da, da. Something like that. It was a cartoon. It was a cartoon. Ba, ba, dee, da, da. And it was Norm who was in his lounge chair, big fat beer gut and a slob. And he had a really annoying niece. Was it his niece that used to nag him to get up out of the chair and do something physical? And I think Norm even had a beer in his hand. And he goes, "Beauty, Nuke." Who would he be referring to, Kelsey?
No idea.
John Newcombe, former world #1 tennis player, Australian, won Wimbledon. And so Norm's watching the sport. And obviously John Newcombe has just won a point. And he goes, "Beauty, Nuke," to the TV. Life Be In It. Yes, it was a Get Active health campaign of the 1970s. There you are.
Funeral song? What do you rate it as a funeral song?
Well, it's a bit late, I guess, once you're 6 feet under. But yes, it's a good one. I like it. Just before we go, millennial, a study has come out with Australia's most commonly misspelt words. I've got a couple here that have made the list, and I'm going to see if you can spell them.
Okay.
Now, I'm just going to say this. I love spell check.
Okay.
And
you
I've
need
got
it.
also, and I've got
You
to say
need
this.
Grammarly. You need everything.
Do you want to know something else?
What?
Your mum is a brilliant speller.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. She's very
How
good.
good is your mum spelling?
Yeah, well, she paid attention in school.
Well, when we were in year 11 together, she was in 11E1 and I was in 11E5.
You
wanna
with
know
the
what-
dub-dubs.
Do you want to know why I was in 11E5?
Why?
Because there wasn't an 11E6.
Yeah.
And you have the bloke up here, John, 3 doors up. He was in the class too.
There you go.
And we had one girl, I forget her name, but she used to always wear thongs. Anyway,
He was thongs to school.
this girl used to. Ask your mum, I forget her name, but she was in my 11E5 class. Anyway, this is Narrabeen High, folks. So I'm going to give you, you want 1 or 2 or 3 of the most commonly misspelt words according to a recent survey.
Start with one and we'll go from there.
Okay, definitely. Spell definitely.
DEFENITY?
You see, you fell into the trap.
What?
It's DEFIN.
Oh.
I know. And the way to remember it, and you'll remember this from now on, spell it defiantly.
Yeah. Okay, next one.
Separate or separate.
SEPERATE.
S what?
SEPERATE.
Separate. SEPARATE. And one more. Are you ready, Kelsey?
Yeah.
The third most commonly misspelt word, receive.
Well, now I'm thinking, oh, he's There's going to be R-E-C-I-E-V-E.
No, it's R-E-C-E-I-V-E. Now, we used to learn at school I before E, except after C. However, that falls down because there are so many words where that does not apply. Okay, so they say I before E except after C. So only with words with a C in it does the I come I before. Neighbour, N-E-I-G-H-B-O-R. Way, W-E-I-G-H. Slay, S-L-E-I-G-H. Vein, V-E.
Yeah, we get the point.
So, glacier. So I before E, except after C, is not a reliable tool.
Well, the English language is full of contradictions.
Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah. Are you a better speller than I am?
No. I'm up there with you. But your mum is queen of the castle.
She would have nailed that.
She is. Hey, I tell you what. When your mum comes home this afternoon, I'm going to put it to the test.
Nice.
You reckon she'll let me record it? I'll see if I can record it.
Yeah.
Coming up on this episode of the Bonafide podcast, it is in fact episode 131. The dropping price in Australia's housing market. Is it a good thing? Is it here to stay? Here's a question. Do you buy now or are the prices going to go down even further? We'll talk to Shane Oliver, Chief Economist with AMP about that. And wait till you hear Adam Shand coming up and Real Crime. Today's, folks, is a doozy. Well, the big finance news this week, well, there's a bit of it actually. The cost of petrol has now gone back up with the fuel excise relief now over. We'll get to that in just a second, but it's the price of Australian housing that's got everybody talking. There is a slump, a national average home price slump. And house prices on the way down, they've accelerated in July, prices down 0.7%. Their largest monthly fall since December 2022. Capital city prices fell 0.9%, with 5 of the 8 capital cities seeing falls led by a number of things. An acceleration in declines in Sydney and Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth are also falling too. But the key drivers, according to Shane Oliver, Chief Economist with AMP, is this year's rate hikes, the budget tax hikes on investors, and low buyer confidence with further price falls likely, unfortunately. There's a bit to talk about this morning. Shane Oliver from AMP. G'day.
G'day, Luke. Good Lord.
Good Lord, Shane. Good Lord, Shane Oliver. Hey, listen, there's a bit to talk about. I also want to talk, if we have time, about the increasing number of young Australians making their parents not so empty nesters. We'll get to that in a second. And the relief with the fuel excise is now over. And pretty quickly yesterday, we saw service stations raising the price of petrol almost immediately. And some service stations right after midnight were charging $2.20 to $2.60 a litre when it was 16 cents cheaper just a few hours ago. So we'll try and get to all of that. But Shane Oliver, the national slump of home prices. The government is saying this is a great thing. They've done the right thing, that they've put in place positive policy, for example, the 5% deposit for first home buyers, the changes to negative gearing, which means you can only negative gear a house that's new, which they say will encourage the building of new houses, and all's going to plan. Well, if that's the case, why is the opposition, well, I guess it's the opposition's job to complain and be negative, but has the government done the right thing? Is this a good thing for first home buyers?
Well, it's probably a good thing for first home buyers. I mean, the first home buyers would say, well, the problem we've had over the last many years now, it's been an issue for 20 years, is that housing is unaffordable, house prices are too high, so therefore if you can get lower prices, that's good for first home buyers. Not so good if you're a first home buyer who got in 6 months ago and prices now coming down, but certainly good for those trying to get in. There's always going to be a timing issue there. So in that sense, it's good. I guess you could argue so far it's neither here nor there, though. Prices on average around Australia have come down about 2%. In Sydney and Melbourne, they're down about 5%. That only reverses, the previous 6 months' increases. So in the great scheme of things, it doesn't dramatically improve affordability. I guess the bigger issue would be if prices continue to come down more substantially, then you get a bigger improvement to affordability. But you've got to be careful what you wish for there,
right?
Because if prices come down, this is where economics gets confident. It's confusing on the one hand this, on the other hand something else. If prices come down too much, then the bulk of Australians who own their own home will feel a lot poorer. They will spend less, and that could be negative for the economy. More importantly, those who started to get in last year after the expansion of the first home 5% deposit scheme may face negative equity. So there's all sorts of issues in there. On the one hand, I think you want prices to come off a little bit. We probably want to go in an environment where prices don't go up as much as they used to relative to people's incomes. That would give a better environment for first-home buyers, but by the same token, we don't want prices to come down too much all at once.
Yeah, I heard Tanya Plibersek say on Channel 7 Sunrise the other day that this is a good thing. And for the boomers who are sitting on enormous equity in their homes, she said they got there relatively without unscathed. Well, that's not true. That's not true. We're in our house because we didn't spend excessively. We stayed at home. We didn't live on takeaway. And we saved nearly a massive percentage of my wage went on the mortgage. And we lived within our means. So we didn't get there without hurt, but we did buy at a good time. And you've got younger Australians saying, well, the boomers who have all this equity and are living in their big homes, they should sell, they should downsize, and they should hand off some money to their kids so that they're not just their children, but their grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have a future financially. I'll get back to that in just a sec. But you just said something that pricked up my ears. Young new home buyers with using the 5% deposit getting trapped in what's called negative equity. Explain that.
Well, negative equity is where the value of your property is worth less than what you owe on the property.
Yep.
And this is the problem with the 5% deposit scheme, and it's basically the reason why banks used to demand a 20% deposit. If in the event you default on the property, they have to sell the property. If it's fallen below what you owe, then the bank could be in trouble. At present, of course, the burden is now on the homeowner because the bank is guaranteed, protected by the government under that scheme. But basically, if you get in at, say, let's take a big round number because many prices push up to these levels. There's $1 million and you've paid $950,000 for it. I think that's your 5% deposit of $50,000. Let's say the property falls by $80,000, then you've got negative equity because the property will be worth $920,000. You will owe $950,000, so that's $30,000 less. And once you allow for transaction fees and so on, it could be quite a lot worse. That's the concept of negative equity, and that's the risk for first-home buyers. Now, to some degree at present, it's not so bad because the bottom end of the market is not going down that much yet. In fact, Totality, I think, reported that what they call the bottom quintile, or the bottom quartile rather, that's the bottom 20% of prices, from what I can see here, actually rose 0.3% over the 3 months to July. So they're still going up a little bit, being boosted by first-home buyers trying to get in at that low end, but it could be a risk going forward. And I know lots of people around where I live, where prices have come off quite a bit, you've seen quite substantial drops just compared to what they paid a couple of years ago. So that could be an issue. Now, of course, the Reserve Bank will say there's not a lot of people with negative equity anyway. It's not a big issue. It only becomes a big issue if the property prices continue to plunge, to fall and fall sharply. Then it could become more of an issue.
You mentioned that the capital cities have slumped. What about regional Australia? And I've been banging on about decentralisation, and you get a lot of. We just went to Casino for the Casino Truck Show, right? Which is an hour inland from Ballina. It was fantastic. Okay, but we looked at property prices, and you can get a beautiful 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-garage home for $630,000. I'm just using that as a silly example. I bet you're like me. Whenever you go travelling, especially to a regional part of Australia, after you have your obligatory Chinese meal, a succulent Chinese meal, I'll actually say, you go for a walk back to your hotel and you look in the real estate window.
That's right.
We all do it. And you go, look at that, look at that. Why aren't more Australians saying, to hell with the capital city, the rat race, the crowds, the lack of transport, the expense of driving through tolls, the fuel prices. Why don't we move to a regional centre? I'll pick out a few. Bathurst, Orange, Townsville, Albury. Why aren't more Australians doing that? Is it through lack of infrastructure? Are there no jobs there? I'm just putting it out there.
They're all the sorts of reasons that it happens. Other countries have done this a lot better. You can go to parts of Europe and you see lots of little towns with 30,000 people living here, 100 over there, 25 down there, and they're all within half an hour of each other, and housing is a lot more affordability.
Yeah.
Also the US, outside of those big cities of LA, Chicago, San Francisco, New York, you get a lot of good value properties in these regional centres, but it's made possible by infrastructure, I think, and jobs being spread about. And that's what we need to do in Australia. Whitlam and, was it Tom Uren, I think, thought of doing this way back when we were little kids in the 70s with Albury Wodonga, and then we seem to lose interest in it. But that's what should have happened in Australia. Unfortunately, we've concentrated ourselves in these big capital cities, and that, of course, has meant relatively expensive housing in Australia. And once you start concentrating in a city, it attracts all the resources and the infrastructure and the health and so on. And so that's not a good thing about Australia. And I think we could solve this problem, as you've been banging on about, by decentralisation. It is the way to go. Now, regional prices are starting to come off a little bit. They did fall 0.2% according to Cotality in the month of July, but you can see the price advantage. This is the regional average. That would include really expensive areas in Australian regions and obviously the cheaper areas. The average dwelling in a regional area is about 769,000. The average capital city price is just over 1 million. And that, of course, is dominated by Sydney, Brisbane and Perth. All over 1 million average price. So, but that is the opportunity, I think, for Australia longer term to sort of shift away. The internet, not so much the internet, but the advances on the internet, the fibre optic speeds and so on, all those sorts of things should make that possible. We do have more of a white collar workforce these days, and that should enable those people to relocate and work from home. Offered hope on that front. Yeah,
COVID taught us that a large percentage of the workforce can work from home productively.
That's right. And
some
you
people
and I
can't. Some people can't.
You and I are doing it right now.
We are.
And if I go back pre-COVID, I didn't know anything about Riverside. The thing I immediately used as we went into COVID was Skype, of course, which is now, I think, gone the way of the dodo, but it's
Skype's up there with VHS and Beta. Okay, I'm just
that's right. But it set the scene.
It did.
We just used it for saying hello to everyone when we're on holiday somewhere. But now that's the way of doing business. Podcasts like this, you can do them wherever you are. You can commute fairly easily by telecommuting. So we should enable more of that. But unfortunately, the focus was on getting everyone back to the CPDs and back to the same old problems. And I think that's a bit of an issue from an affordability point of view. Because it's all very well to say jam more people in, build more 6-story, 10-story apartments down our beaches and so on, and make it available to everybody. But I don't think that's the long-term solution. I think that just leads to congestion and more annoyance and lower levels of happiness.
Lower levels of lifestyle.
Because Australia is known for its lifestyle. People come to Australia to get the quarter-acre block, to have the good lifestyle. They don't think they're going to come here and see loads of congestion, which is the path we've gone down. And of course, these sort of things, the congestion, are leading to the backlash against immigration. The immigration program has been a good thing overall, but because we haven't planned it properly, it's led to all these sorts of issues. I think we do need to get on top of it. I mean, another example is universities. I mean, a lot of the immigrants that come in every year are going to universities, and that's a good thing for Australia. We earn money from that.
It's a big earn. Education, yep.
It's a big earn. But we don't house them on the universities. They've got to go, they've got to go into housing that kids compete for, sort of thing. I think we could have said, we want a great industry with higher education. We want more foreign students coming in there for that purpose. But you can have as many students as you want. You've got to house them on your campus. That's the way that's the path we should have gone down. And of course, that required a bit of planning. But unfortunately, we just adopted these short-term solutions. I'll put the metro in. Great thing. Love the metro. And then we jam in lots of apartments around it, which then leads to congestion. So I don't think that's a longer-term solution. We have to focus on more out-of-the-box things like decentralisation, even though Whitlam and Uren were onto it 50 years ago.
Okay, so for decentralisation to work, there's got to be land, there has to be affordable housing. There's got to be infrastructure. There's going to be roads. There's going to be childcare. There's going to be schools. There's going to be hospitals. There's going to be doctors. There's got to be teachers who want to go there. There's going to be police officers who want to go there. And the most important thing is a reliable water supply. We can get back to that. I want to ask you this question, and you're going to hate the question, and you may even say, stop recording, I don't want to be responsible for this advice. Example, my daughter and her husband are looking to buy, and they've been renting for 11, 12 years. So she's got a budget, and you know what her budget is, and I look at some of the houses that she's looking at and the houses in the area that she wants, and they're crap. For the amount of money, they're just terrible. Now, should she wait? Because the prices are coming down, and you're going to hate this, but does she wait? Does she hang on? Does she find more bang for her buck in 6 months' time?
Well, she probably will. I mean, this is the problem with trying to time housing or shares or anything.
It's a gamble.
It is a bit of a gamble, but if you're talking about Sydney prices are already off 5.3% according to Cotality. So they've already had quite a big fall. So now I think is the time to start looking around. I think there's more downside out there, but if you manage to look around and you find something, then it's probably worth jumping in. And I think ultimately you're buying the land value here. The houses, right, you might say are crap, but providing the land's okay, you can renovate the house eventually in time. Mind you, the quality of those houses in some cases might not be that much different to the ones the one I grew up in.
When I say a house, it was a townhouse. Oh, yeah. And they would like 3 bedrooms because they're expecting due late January. He wants an office. They want their bedroom. They want 3 bedrooms. So are they, and that's a reasonable thing to ask, but there aren't any freestanding houses in their budget. They have to go for an apartment or a townhouse.
That's the problem. And that's another problem. There's hardly any units which are 3 bedrooms in Australia. They're all 2 bedrooms. They're all geared to the young rental market, not people with kids. And then once you go beyond...
And Shane, and the dog.
And the dog, yeah. Well,
they have a dog.
That's fair enough. I have a dog too.
Yeah, but you own your own home.
I know, I'm lucky. Well, but don't forget, back to your comment earlier on, and then you moved on. Baby boomers did have other issues. When I was leaving school in the late 70s, the big concern was unemployment, and that problem got even worse going into the early 80s recession, over 10% unemployment, massive levels of youth unemployment at the time. And so the big fear I always had was that I won't get a job. And then, of course, that continued into the early 90s, and that's when, the 80s and the 90s.
Rates. And what were interest rates? 17%.
We got to 17%. I mean, you could say, well, when I got in, my wage was going up at a reasonable rate, so you could quickly pay down the mortgage, and then interest rates came down, so things moved in our favour after that. But there was a difficult period around that time with high unemployment and high interest rates at the same time, virtually. It wasn't all smooth sailing for baby boomers, and we didn't have smashed avocado. I mean, we did have avocados back then. My parents introduced me to avocados.
We had choco. We had chocos.
Choco's terrible stuff. My mother used to love chocos.
We had a choco vine. We had a choco vine, and we had steamed chocos with everything. It was off our vine. Anyway.
There's a funny line on that one. It's a classic Australian line. If you think someone can't do anything, the political party's stuffing up, you say, they couldn't string a choco vine over an outside dunny.
A brick shit house. Yeah.
I love that line.
Yeah,
a lot of people say, what the hell is a choco?
Yeah, they used to say that about terrible football coaches. He couldn't coach a choco vine over a brick shithouse. But anyway, the millennials are going to hate us saying that we had it tough, and it's like the Monty Python sketch. Oh, we had a touch. We used to have to get up 2 hours before we went to bed, lick the road clean with our tongue, go work down the mill and pay them tuppence a week for the pleasure of working there. And when we got home, our father would cut us into little pieces with a carving knife and jump on our grave singing Glory Hallelujah.
Yeah. I told my kids, because I live in the same zone where I grew up. I told them when I was young, there were no roads. And there was
you rode the donkey to school.
It took 2 hours to get to the school.
On a donkey, but no saddle. Yeah. Hey, listen, enough. Which takes us to the next topic. When you and I entered the workforce at the same time. I was 18th of September, 1978. $62.40. I lived at home for a while. I was charged $20 board, a third of my $62.40. $20 was my board. I didn't blink because all my mates who also were working at the time, that was what happened. A third of your wage went to your mum for your board. Now we find out, just last week, the head of Australia's Productivity Commission, Danielle Wood, has warned that Australia's property market was becoming less accessible to young people. And Domain's latest rental report, Shane, released July 8, showed record high rents across Australian capital cities and near record low vacancies. Sydney house rents surged 6.3% in the June quarter to a record $850 a week. And more young Australians are now going to go back home and live with mum and dad. Mum and dad aren't going to be empty nesters anymore. And that number's increasing, Shane.
I think that's a sign of the times. You know, it's a lot harder now for kids to get out there. I mean, there was a time, if you go, the property boom, which started, I think, about 20 years ago, because that's when immigration levels surged and we stopped building enough homes. Initially, rents were quite low. It made sense to get out there and rent.
Because there was a lot of supply.
There was a lot of supply. And now it's, after 20 years of not building enough homes, we don't have enough supply. We did have a little unit building boom in there in, 2015, 2019. Economists like me were doing a crane count. You'd walk around, look around Sydney and see cranes everywhere. It's fantastic to some degree. And we were getting on top of the housing supply shortfall. And then, of course, the pandemic came along and ruined all of that. But I think there is a big issue there that young people are struggling. They often, if they do go to university, they end up with a massive amount of debt. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the HELP or HEX scheme is a good thing, but that can be an issue. And then you find the rental market is overly tight. The rental vacancy rates are way, way below average. We're now seeing very strong rental growth. Typically, numbers on totality, 6% or something, and that's pretty much the story around Australia. So that is an issue. So they stay at home for longer with the parents. I guess parents have an obligation to help their kids. They brought them into the world. You need to give them a good education. You need to help them with housing. And initially, that help with housing should partly include them staying at home for longer. So I don't see a major problem with that. Some people might. I thought it was good having my kids stay as long as they could at home.
But did they clean up? Were they neat and tidy? Did they do the washing up? Did they vacuum?
No, not as much as they should.
Did they brush their skid marks off the? Anyway, look, you do what you've got to do.
But they're not too bad. I mean, my kids have been pretty good, so I can't.
No, but you see, you've trained them very well, Shane Oliver. You have trained them. You should be very, very proud. Shane, just one other thing that's going to affect the economy immensely is that the Australia's temporary fuel excise relief ended this week. And immediately we saw service stations putting the price of fuel up to $2.20 a litre. One was $2.60. Jesus. How's this going to affect the economy?
Well, obviously, it's a negative. We had this back in March. Petrol prices went sky high. I think unleaded got to $2.58 at that point in time. So we're still on average below that, according to I was just looking at Motor Mouth. We're sort of pushing up to around $2, but you give those examples which are above that. And that's probably where we were going. I think before this, we were about $1.95. You add on 16 cents a litre. It's actually 17 cents a litre because there's 1 cent of fuel excise indexation. It always goes up every 6 months by the amount of the CPI over the previous 6 months. So that's 17 cents. So that takes us well above $2. We're not at the highs we got back in March yet. To get to those levels would require the situation in the Middle East to get a lot worse. It changes every 7 days. You got Donald Trump out there every 7 days saying there's going to be a massive attack, worse than World War II. Maybe he should have said even worse than the Civil War. I don't know. These lies that he comes up with are hilarious sometimes. Well, then the day later he's back down and says, we're having peace talks again. And so
because I think
he
says,
down. So
I think he says, we're having peace talks. Things are looking very productive and we're on track. And of course, he wants to try and cap the price of oil. So as soon as he says everything's under control, a peace agreement's just around the corner, the price of oil per barrel drops down. But you can only cry wolf so many times.
But that's right. The other problem is that if it goes down too much, looks like the Iranians don't like it down too low, so they start shooting ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and it goes back up again. So we're sort of stuck here a little bit. I mean, hopefully there will be a peace deal and common sense will prevail, but who knows? I reckon petrol prices probably end up staying around the low $2, $2.10, $2.15. If the war just goes out of control again and oil prices go sky high, $150 a barrel or something, then we'll go a lot higher. But hopefully we'll end up not going too much higher from here. But nevertheless, on my calculation, that rise in average petrol prices from where they were at the end of June, we've come from $1.53 a litre to now pushing above $2. That's going to add about $21 to the average household with a petrol car to their average bill a week. $21. So it's an extra $100 a month they've got to find. So that is a dampener on spending in the economy. Bad news for consumer confidence. Pushes the inflation rate back up again after a week or so ago. It started to come down. So that's an ongoing issue for Australia. There's no doubt about that one. I kind of think, should the government have extended the fuel excise cut? I've sort of got mixed feelings on that. On the one hand, as a motorist, you sort of think that'd be good. On the other hand, you think, well, there's better ways to help people, better target the truckies with the diesel and so on, specifically help them and specifically help low-income earners rather than help the rich people driving around big V8s. So that's my take on that.
Oh, what?
Not all the rich people. Not all the people who drive V8s are rich.
The rich.
Got to qualify that.
Okay, last question. What is the real figure of Australia's fuel capacity? I'm talking about stock. According to the government website, today they're saying we have a total of 6.5 billion litres of fuel left. Now, Shane Oliver, that breaks down to 46 days. We're supposed to have 90. But we have 46 days of petrol, according to the government figures. We have 39 days of diesel, 34 days of jet fuel. Total volume, 6.5 billion litres across all fuel types. Now, we have 2 refineries. We have only 2 domestic refineries. We used to have 8. One is the Ampol Lytton in Queensland and the other one is Viva Geelong in Victoria. Now, those 2 refineries, Shane Oliver, supply less than 20% of the total demand. Your thoughts?
Well, this is an issue that sort of crept up on us. We thought, I guess we didn't even think about it. The market said, well, it costs too much to process fuel in Australia. We'll shut these refineries down, and labour costs are too high. We'll do it in other countries like Singapore or somewhere else, and that's what's happened. And then it was okay when oil prices were coming down and there wasn't any major issues in the Middle East. There's always issues in the Middle East, but not as bad as they have been lately. And so it seemed rational to let them shut down and shift offshore. But I think this highlights the danger in that sort of thinking, that you can carry that too far, and that we should have been thinking a bit more about exploration in Australia, opening up more gas fields, opening up more fuel to keep us going. We don't need to do a whole lot there, but just keep us going until perhaps there is more electrification of what we need in Australia, and possibly keep at least one of those refineries going. It is worth noting the government is investigating building a refinery in WA, so there is some action potentially on that front. So that would probably be a good thing. We probably also need to look at more exploration. I mean, it does strike me as odd that the one state that's very dependent on gas, Victoria, should have plenty of gas, but because they banned exploration, they've now got to import it, and we're actually importing building a facility to import gas. And so therefore here we are, Australia, big gas exporter, and they've actually got to build a facility to import it. That strikes me as a bit odd that we've got ourselves into this mess in Australia, or at least Victoria has, but Victoria's a funny place.
Do you think we should be going down the nuclear path? Is nuclear energy cheaper? It's very expensive to get the infrastructure built, but the countries that use nuclear power claim that they have cheaper power for consumers to use. Do you want to do that as another topic on another day?
Well, that's a complicated topic.
How about we hook our listeners and we look at the economic pros and cons of going nuclear or other forms of energy besides coal fire?
Yeah, sure.
Shane Oliver, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Are we in good shape? Is the future of Australia going to be okay?
Look, I think it's going to be okay, Luke. We are the lucky country. We do go through rough patches, and we've been through these rough patches before, but history of Australia is that we always regroup and get back on track again. So that is the way I see it. I mean, could we be doing better now? Yes, we could. We do have lots of issues, and that partly goes back to governments which haven't been doing the right thing. They've been opting for Band-Aid solutions rather than longer-term fixes. But I'm optimistic that, sooner or later, a government will come along and get us back on track, and the Australian people will help do that anyway. So I'm not overly negative on Australia. I mean, it is one. You go over. I mean, the purpose of overseas travel for Australians is to go overseas and then come back to Australia and realise how good it is here. That's why you go on overseas. I always get back to Australia after going on an overseas holiday. I don't go too often, but every so often. And then you get back and think, gee, this place is pretty good compared to many other countries. And you criticise the government, but by and large, doing things, interacting with government is pretty smooth compared to many other countries. Our infrastructure, is not the best. We got a bit of congestion and we made some mistakes there and too many immigrants in one area sort of thing, jamming the population up. We do that better, but by and large, it's still not too bad.
Shane Oliver, if you're optimistic, I'm optimistic, and we will talk again soon. Thank you so much. Shane Oliver, Chief Economist with AMP.
Thanks, Luke. It's been fun. Good Lord.
Good Lord. Well, from time to time here on the Bonafide podcast, we are intrigued and educated by Mr. Real Crime, Australia's #1 crime reporter, Adam Shand. And there's a story that we want to share with you that goes back to the year 2010. And this, folks, is the most intriguing, scurrilous. It's tragic because it's about a murder under extraordinary circumstances. It's a story of a hidden life. It's a story of sex, betrayal, and the twists and turns in this, folks, is quite shocking. It's the incredible story of the murder of Herman Rockefeller. Now, this, folks, is got to be a movie. And I don't know why it hasn't been made into a movie. It's lean forward sort of stuff. We are talking about a multi-millionaire who led a double life. No one immediately close to him, family, his wife, knew exactly what this fella was getting up to. Back in 2010, he was supposed to have arrived home in Melbourne at the airport, and he was supposed to go straight home. He'd been on a business trip to Newcastle. And this bloke, Herman Rockefeller, told his wife that his flight had been delayed. Well, his wife, Vicky, waited and waited and waited. And Herman Rockefeller was usually religious, strange word when you look at the context of this story, but religious about letting his wife know where he was and where he'd be and what time he'd be home. So she was immediately worried. What happened then when she called the police because she was concerned? As I say, the most extraordinary story you will have heard for a long, long time. I don't want to say too much more because our expert is with us in the Bonafide podcast, Riverside Connection studio, Adam Shand. Brother, g'day and welcome. Haven't we got a beauty here?
Yeah, it's got all the elements, Luke. As you said, betrayal, sex, mystery, a secret life, all the stuff that we journalists...
Threesomes. Yeah. And you were actually involved in this all those years ago. You've got an incredible connection to this story too. So I'll let you take it away.
Well, as you said, Luke, this all began when Herman Rockefeller, successful businessman, is coming back from a trip to Newcastle to Melbourne with his brother Robert.
Now, he was a real estate developer, wasn't he? He was very successful.
Yeah, he was involved in several businesses. He had property. Right. He was a company director. He was just your really straight-laced, very conventional sort of character. Lived in Malvern, had a nice family, lovely wife, Vicky. And I really feel sorry for her out of all this.
That's in Melbourne's eastern suburbs. It's a very, very upmarket area, but yet he kind of lived and didn't show off his wealth. He kind of lived below the radar, but lived in a very good suburb of Melbourne.
Well, he did, he drove a Prius, and he wasn't flashy. He wasn't part of the New York Rockefellers. He was American, but didn't have that connection to the multi-millionaire Rockefellers. But he was doing pretty well, and so he's coming home from this business trip from Newcastle with Robert, and they're talking about the future deals they're doing in New Zealand, and it's all great, And so he tells his wife, "Listen, I'm running a bit late, as you said." He's supposed to drive into town back to Malvern. He doesn't turn up, and a few days later, his car is found at a place called Ballon on the way to Ballarat. There's a complete mystery of how this has happened.
It was found by a truckie from memory. And what did the police issue a public awareness campaign for people to look out for this car?
Oh yeah, they were searching the bushland around there, thinking he might have wandered off. But the first thing was, why did he go not to Malvern but to Ballon? Why would he do that? The wife had no clue whatsoever. Yeah, his wife was upset. She was distraught, as you can imagine. And his kids. The real mystery was, why would he didn't even get to the tollway. You would have expected that his toll device would have triggered, and you work out where his path lay. So they find the car at Ballon, and there is a major search in the bush around there trying to work out what's happened to Herman. No clue is found. Little by little, the story begins to come out.
Let's have a listen. This is Herman's wife, Vicky, at the very beginning of all of this, and you can hear or see that she's very concerned.
Just nothing. It's nothing. You just can't imagine what it's like. It's just unbearable.
Little by little, the police began to piece together what the clues were. And this is something that I broke back in the day about 8 days after his disappearance, was that he had 5 prepaid mobile phones. Right. I'd gone to see a very senior homicide detective, and and in my normal practice, I gave him 1 coffee and he didn't want to tell me anything. I gave him the second coffee, he got a bit excited, and he said, 5 phones, secret life. I got, yes, that's the story. That's the story. Police are following the trail of Herman Rockefeller once his car's found at Ballon. He hasn't gone home to Malvern, and they track him down to a house in Hadfield, which is about 12 kilometres north of Melbourne CBD and within easy striking distance of the airport. At that house are 2 people, a woman called Bernadette Denny, she was then 41, and her sometime boyfriend Mario Shembri, 57. Now, police began to connect Herman Rockefeller with an alter ego, Andy Kingston. You got Bernadette Denny, who's a single mother, and her boyfriend Mario Shembri, who is they're both pretty down-at-heel people. Bernadette's a bit of an alcoholic. Mario's a ne'er-do-well. He fixes up cars, and he's an odds and sods sort of character. And they're involved, Luke, in the swinging scene.
Right.
Now police begin to connect this alter ego that Rockefeller was using, Andy Kingston. And Andy Kingston had been a regular on the swinger scene. And he was placing ads in these various magazines where swingers go. That's how they met him. And as the story begins to come out, particularly after the 5 phone secret life revelation, was that he had been going to see Shembri and Denny at this grubby little house. He'd had sex with Bernadette on the first occasion.
In front of the husband.
In front of the husband, the old cuckold scene. It's all so grubby and tawdry. I mean, this is a classic case, Luke, where the swinging scene, it never ends up good. It never ends up like a good idea. Maybe it sounds like a good idea at the time, but it never ends up well. Anyway, so he'd gone and had sex with Bernadette, and then Mario said, listen, if you want to come back again, you got to bring your girlfriend or partner or wife. Herman apparently promised to do that. He makes a quick phone call and agrees to meet them on the way back from the airport. Andy Kingston's an arrogant sort of character, and he doesn't bring anyone along because he's just come straight from the airport thinking he'll have a quick nookie in Hadfield, go back to Malvern, back to his normal life, leaving the Andy Kingston alter ego, to one side. This devolves into an argument between Denny, Shembri and Rockefeller, and it turns physical, and Rockefeller falls over and hits his head against the coffee table or something like that. That's the story that they told later. And he dies. Now, had Shembri and Denny just come clean about what had happened, maybe nothing would have happened. They wouldn't have been charged with anything other than misadventure because they had, see, the living people get to tell the story. And with Rockefeller dead, he was unable to tell the details of what happened. So they're in Hadfield at Denny's home. Now they go, let's not go to the police. They won't understand. The classic movie scene where the villains go, the police won't understand. So they make some catastrophically stupid and bizarre errors. Mario's got a friend at Glenroy, which is not too far away from Hadfield and within easy striking distance as well, where he puts some of his broken down cars and things, and he's got an arrangement where he uses this house. Shembri goes off and buys a chainsaw and other bits and pieces and other accelerants and saws Herman Rockefeller's body up, puts it in a 44-gallon drum, and proceeds to try to burn him, feeding bits of Herman into the 44-gallon drum. In fact, there was one later on, one of the neighbours was complaining about the smell of this fire, and I thought someone's having a barbecue on Australia Day, and it was actually poor old Herman going up in flames. So eventually, this all comes out. He's charged in about 9 days after his disappearance. Initially, they're charged with homicide, with murder, and it seems a pretty clear-cut case that they can do that. But there's a plea deal, and in the end, they plead guilty to manslaughter, and they only get 7 and 9 years respectively. Denny gets 7 years and Shembry gets 9 years, and both of them are actually out of jail now. So this whole tawdry thing ends up with Herman sawed up and in the 44-gallon drum in flames, with Shembry and Denny facing the courts. It's a terrible, and I just really feel sorry for Rockefeller's wife, Vicky, and his kids who've had to live with the stain of this whole thing. It's amazing what some men will do to satisfy their bizarre sexual tastes, Luke.
He was discovered during that burn-off by, was it volunteer firefighters or was it the fire brigade? But he was discovered because it was actually a total fire ban.
It was, and this was Australia Day. One of the neighbours reported this fire taking place and the fire brigade turns up and he has to quickly put the fire out. Can you imagine the conversations between Denny and Shembry, desperate people doing desperate things? There's about 1 million better ways to dispose of a body, which shows these people were just making it up as they went along, really.
But it makes you think about people with a double life, and you think you know someone. From what I can gather, Herman Rockefeller's wife, Vicky, thought she knew him inside out, and she didn't know really anything about him. And what about the rest of his family? You said they've got to now live with this stain. What a terrible stain.
Yeah, he'd been living the perfect life to this point, Luke. You know, he was a fitness fanatic. He ran marathons. He was in the Melbourne Marathon. He actually did it in 3 hours, 40 minutes and 22 seconds. So he was a serious runner. He had this great company. He was a churchgoer. He had all the outward appearances of someone who's just a suburban dad doing his business, driving his Prius, environmentally conscious. And meanwhile, he's got this raging alter ego, Andy Kingston, who can do anything, who believes he's invisible. And I think it's a kind of psychosis that sets in with these people. And I think the swingers scene is full of these sorts of people who are deeply duplicitous, deeply cowardly, and who are cheating on their partners, doing all kinds of things. But it's the interesting choice of women. I mean, he and Mario as well, let's face it, he was watching the whole thing. This is a guy that could have afforded high-class hookers, got the most beautiful women, but he decides to go for Bernadette Denny, and let's face it, she's a sort of rough trade, as is Mario.
Low rent.
He gets into this whole thing and it brings him down. It's just a terribly sad thing at the end of the day. And it's a lesson to anybody who gets in this scene. You're dealing with people who are just, I guess, you know, I don't want to put down, well, maybe I can put down swingers because I think it's a grubby activity. And I think it's a lot of families who are destroyed by this, and a lot of women go along with it because their husbands want to do it. But this is a classic example where it goes wrong, because I mean, Vicky would never have been involved in something like this.
No.
So he had to create this alter ego, and he'd been doing it for years. There was also other secret girlfriends that Kingston had he was seeing on a regular basis, as well as doing all this grubby swinging stuff.
So where did he find the swinging set? Was it 2010? Was it online back in those days, or was it in the newspapers? How did they advertise? Is
that a personal inquiry, Luke, or you just just for the story?
No, but he was a multi-millionaire.
Yeah,
and as you say, he could have got any high-class hooker to do whatever he wanted.
Right.
So he's gone to the newspaper, has he?
He'd been doing it long enough that he began with magazine ads, and progressed to these early internet swingers sites. But he'd never revealed who he was. So Kingston was a secure way to indulge his grubby fantasies. And unfortunately, he paid for it with Herman Rockefeller's life.
So tell me how you got involved in all of this. You obviously have got a brilliant nose for a great crime story. You were investigating this back then.
Well, this was the fascination of Melbourne at the time. What happened to Herman? Why his car ended up at Ballon, how he'd ended up at Hadfield, and what the connections were. So I was then working for the Sunday Herald Sun here in Melbourne, and I'd gone to see this very senior homicide detective, who probably shouldn't have told me this, but he did, He liked the media. I won't say who he is. And as I say, I primed him up with coffees. And I said, there's got to be something. You've got to give us something for this Sunday's paper. And he just put his hand up and said, 5 phones, secret life. It was a beautiful moment because then it all the pieces fit together. A man leading a sordid double life, indulging his fantasies in this swinger world, which led him down this tawdry path to a down-at-heel house in Hadfield, and then ultimately into a 44-gallon drum being sawed up and burnt by the unspeakable Shembri and Denny. They're just sad characters, really, at the end of the day. I mean, what would drive you to offer your wife to some complete stranger and then take offence when he doesn't bring his partner along to return the favour? I mean, it's so sordid and pathetic, really. It was abject to be in court when they made their appearance, and they're both sort of crying, thinking, well, you didn't think of that before, did you? It's one of those classic moments, Luke, where if they just fessed up, this has all gone wrong. We had a fight, he fell over, hit his head, and he's died. None of this would have happened. Unless, of course, what they were saying to the police ultimately was bullshit anyway, that they had murdered him and that there was some premeditated plan. Who knows? But in the end, they were able to plead up to manslaughter and got a much lesser sentence than they would have otherwise got for murder, because the cops initially were red hot to charge them with murder, that there may be some sort of deeper story that they probably wouldn't have been able to prove, because in the end, pleading guilty to manslaughter meant that they cut their sentence from maybe 20 years down to 9 and 7, and they're out now. But I wonder, Luke, have they gone back into the swinging scene? Oof, what a grubby thought.
Let's not think about it. And I wonder, did he go for the low rent swinging thing with these two because maybe they were in it just for the sexual gratification, or look, whatever gets you jollies, right? Whatever floats your boat, floats your boat. And you mentioned the word cuckold thing. So Rockefeller, Andy Kingston, has had sex with Bernadette Denny in front of her husband.
Yeah.
The husband's sitting there watching and getting off on it, but then says, well, hang on, next time we want 4 of us. Next time you're going to bring somebody along. But the cuckold swing, maybe he chose that low rent path because it was only for sexual gratification and no money changed hands, so therefore no paper trail. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, as you say, people do all kinds of weird things to get themselves off. I think there's a lot better ways to get yourself off than putting yourself in these situations. And I think there's something about this whole thing where the fact that they were not very attractive people living in a down-at-heel suburb with none of the trappings of wealth, I think that may have been a turn-on for Herman Rockefeller. Oh. And particularly this alter ego. I think you've got to look at the construction of the alter ego, this Andy Kingston, who was all the things that Herman wasn't.
Yes.
Herman was this suburban dad with kids. I'm not going to comment on his home sex life, but I'd imagine it was probably fairly vanilla. He lived out his fantasies in this world when he'd have been better off staying at home. Goodness me. I mean, people say that masturbation will send you blind, but this sort of thing will send you to your grave. You might as well stay home.
It's just an unbelievable story. The amazing story of Herman Rockefeller, a.k.a. Andy Kingston, and another real crime story with Adam Shand. What are you working on at the moment?
Well, I've got a new series called La Familia, which is a 4-part investigation into a murder in Perth in 2002 where a beloved grandmother from the Italian community disappeared. 4 days later, she turned up wrapped in plastic in a pine plantation north of Perth. There was a prosecution, but the police bungled it, and the Crown prosecutor also bungled it. The accused walked. I was approached by a member of the family who knew who did the murder, and they wanted to prove who the killer was. So I've been working with them since last year to do that, and that's now live on Apple Podcasts. There's a subscriber-only first episode out now. It'll be 4 episodes over the next few weeks, and then it'll be free on Spotify, where you can access that. But it's been a labour of love where 2 sides of a family have come together to tell the story. It's again got a lot of the same elements as the Rockefeller story: betrayal, infidelity, mistrust, lies, and ultimately a murder. So that's out there. Plus also my regular features on Real Crime with Adam Shand. I just did, which will interest you, Luke, I just did an interview with a fellow called Paul Terence Mallender. His name will mean nothing, but his victim, Kay Nesbitt, back in 1985, she was living with her friend who was going out with Mallender and didn't want to see Mallender anymore. So Kay was sent to the door to give him a note telling him to go away. Mallender was found guilty of discharging a shotgun through the door and blowing half of poor Kay Nesbitt's face away. She survived after 50 operations, horribly disfigured, and she became a victim advocate. And Mallender approached me recently to tell the story of why he didn't do it, which I frankly don't believe. So we did a fairly chaotic, emotion-charged interview, which is live on the site now, Real Crime with Adam Shand. I let the listeners make their own judgment about whether he's telling the truth or not. But that's the current thing. And also working on a long-form series on Mark Chopper Reed. So I've got my plate very full at the moment.
Yeah, I talked about Chopper Reed on the podcast last week because we were off to the casino truck show, and I was telling the general manager of the Richmond Valley Council, who we stay with, the story of Mark Chopper Reed saying to Tara Brown on 60 Minutes all those years ago when he was dying, when he looked yellow because he had liver cancer, that he did away with, was it Michael Sid Collins or Sid Michael Collins, a bikie leader who invited Chopper to his wedding on the condition that he'd give him an $8,000 wedding present. Chopper said, why would I give that bloke? And Chopper goes back to jail because Collins does him over. Years later, Chopper Reed and Mark Jacko Jackson are doing their public speaking tour on crime. They're in casino, and who comes up asking for an autograph but Sid Collins? And Chopper said to Tara Brown, I shot him and dug a hole in casino. That has never been proved, and a lot of journalists, police officers and people in the criminal community say, no, Chopper was just bullshitting to embellish his book. But I don't know. I
can guarantee you that is unadulterated, 100% rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sidney Michael Collins had a sordid range of associations, which included Russian mail-order brides. He was involved in that. He had plenty of enemies, plenty of people who could have done away with him. There's no way in the world that you see. Collins was a Tasmanian-based bikie. He wasn't up in casino. The other thing to remember is that Chopper had shot him in the stomach while he was in a vehicle, in the backseat of a vehicle with Mark. So he's hard, and then Chopper goes to jail in prison for that. He's hardly going to come up to Mark later on and say, how about you give me an autograph? I know there are strange bedfellows in the criminal world, but, the thing to remember about Mark was that interview, which I actually organised, he'd come to me. He'd come to me and said, I'm dying. I need some money for the kids and the wife. Can I sell a story to 60 Minutes? And I said, you've told every bullshit story under the sun, Mark. What do you got left? He goes, 4 murders. I said, you didn't kill 4 people. You killed Sammy the Turk down at St Kilda back in the late 80s, but that was self-defense. You didn't even go down for that. He said, no, don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. Get me $250,000. And I've gone, they're not going to go for that. Are you joking? But of course they did. And I did some checking on these things. The first one was a fella called Reginald Isaacs, who was a pedophile who'd killed a little boy, Greg Cowie, and he was in an observation cell at D Division Pentridge. And Mark told the story about how he and a fella called Mad Charlie Heglagi, with the connivance of some screws, got into the cell, bashed the crap out of Isaacs, stomped on his head, all kinds of things, and then hung him behind the door to make it look like a suicide. And of course, when I tried to check all this stuff, Mark wasn't in the division at the time. Heglagi wasn't in the jail. I got the photographs of Isaacs, and there was not a mark on the guy. He had clearly hung himself. There was no outside intervention. The saddest thing is that story went around, and the family of Isaac's victim contacted me to ask Mark to thank Mark for what he'd done. So. And he hadn't done it. Yeah. Unfortunately, Isaacs had taken the coward's way out in that case, rather than do his time for what he'd done. And there's also, he killed another kid prior to that. He was an inveterate, recalcitrant pedophile and murderer who killed to cover up his crimes. So anyway, and 60 Minutes said, well, that's enough checking. That's enough. And they proceeded to put the whole thing to air in order to satisfy the ratings. It was the highest rating 60 Minutes of the year. Everyone was happy with it. Mark died a few weeks later. He was able to look after his family, which I think is the overall thing. But the interesting thing, though, about that interview, there was one little seed of truth in all that bullshit.
Right.
Was the murder of Sammy the Turk Ozakam. This was deemed a self-defense, and he was acquitted on that basis. But I think, and I pretty much know this is the fact, that Mark lured Ozakam outside because Ozakam was flashing around a roll, I think it was $6,000.
Yeah.
And he was a local drug dealer. And Mark decided to rob him and shoot him and kill him because Mark was always fascinated by the idea of killing somebody, what it would feel like to kill somebody. So here's Ozakam, who he's got the opportunity to rob and steal his money, so he does that. And I think that interview was Mark's way of actually atoning for that. So that was the true piece. The rest of it, the other three, didn't happen.
Let's have a quick listen. This is Tara Brown, 60 Minutes.
I'll see you backstage. Come and talk to us backstage. He was there. Oh, couldn't believe it. Mad. Idiot. Completely insane. Off his head on cocaine.
Right. And so what happened then?
Oh, I can tell you what happened then. But we took him, I got him I hopped into his car, going back to his place, bang, 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 bang. And I shot him the last time with his gun. I killed him this time with his gun. That's how stupid he is.
Tell me this, Shandy. Was the movie starring Eric Bana, Chopper, how accurate was that?
Oh, it was rubbish, mostly.
Was it really?
I was over in Zimbabwe recently, and I was watching, and I was with 3 ex-Special Forces soldiers who are undergoing PTSD treatment, and we sat down one night to watch the Chopper film. I said, let me take you through this, and I'll explain to you what's true and what's not. And we stopped the film about 50 times for me to say, that didn't happen, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. And they were shocked because here were guys who'd gone through genuine life and death experiences and had suffered for what they'd seen, and they idolized Mark Chopper Reed. When we got through, all their illusions were shattered, you know. So he was very good at that. And I don't blame him in the slightest for what he did. I mean, it was harmless. He gave people what they wanted. People wanted these stories, that they wanted somebody like Mark Chopper Reed to be the avenging angel who would go after drug dealers and kiddie fiddlers and do things the police couldn't do. But it was all just rubbish. And the idea that he was a standover man and he'd robbed all these massage parlors and it's complete rubbish. I mean,
really?
23 years and 9 months in jail, 14 years of that were for trying to kidnap a judge out of the court. And, you know, he goes into the court with a sawn-off shotgun under his coat. And he decides he's going to kidnap Judge Martin so he can get his mate Jimmy Lofton out of J Ward Ararat, the insane ward at Ararat. He grabs the judge. The tipstaff grabs him. I think the judge or the tipstaff knees him in the balls. It's all over. And he gets 14 years for that. And, of course, as we know, Lofton ends up stabbing him several times. And the whole thing, I mean, this is a story of mental illness, not high-stakes crime. Mark was only a feature inside jail. He was unknown in the criminal world. Only the real crooks would say, what the hell, who's this guy? Well, I've never seen him. He's never been involved in anything that I know.
Oh, wow.
It's all about jail, you know. And to the extent where when he comes up and he finally finishes his stint in jail in Victoria before he goes to jail again in Hobart for shooting Sydney Michael Collins, he contacts a screw of Bendigo Jail and says, I want to speak to the coppers because I want to be an informer.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to give up all these armed robbers to the armed robbery squad in Victoria, a fellow called Rod Porter, who I know very well. That's the one part of the film that is correct, that he goes into the bar there and he's with the 2 detectives and he tips all the guns on the counter and this sort of thing. But the other part, which is people often comment about, is he takes his dick out in the middle of the bar. That didn't happen either. That didn't happen.
What about getting his ears chopped off? What's the story surrounding the ears?
Well, he had absolutely outstayed his welcome in H Division.
H Division, explain that.
In Pentridge. It was the punishment division of Pentridge Prison. He liked it in there because he respected authority. He liked the military discipline of H Division. And he got on very well with the warders, very well, to the extent where he was used as an enforcer against recalcitrant prisoners. And so he would in the middle of the night loom large in a cell and give someone a beating on behalf of the warders. And so this didn't endear him to the other crooks in there. No. So he decides that he's going to get out of H Division and they won't let him out. So he says, let me get my ears cut off by a fellow called Kevin Taylor. That's how I'll achieve it. Of course, he doesn't even achieve. He goes back into H Division soon after. And he's probably the most hated man in Pentridge.
And Kevin Taylor used a razor blade, and in the movie he says, "Come on, have a go. Don't just get into him." It's a terrible, terrible scene of Mark Brandon's.
Yeah, and how much
he is coming off.
How much is true is.
What did he say to you about his ears?
Well, see, the thing is, Mark adopted some of the fictions out of the Chopper film, and Eric Bana's characterization became part of the way Mark projected himself after that. Because Chopper Read was always a cartoon character, a construct, rather than a real person. If you look at the first book from the inside, the very first page is rubbish, where he talks about being kidnapped on the street and taken up to the bush and made to dig his own grave, and then he attacks the guy with a shovel and puts him in the ground, and that's all rubbish. Never happened. So from the very first page of that book, and there's another 10 or 11 volumes after that, which I think there's probably about 10% truth in the first one, and it got down to about minus 10% by the end. It was just complete and utter fantasy.
Did he admit that to you?
Well, what I did when I wrote my book, The Real Chopper, which was really a fart against thunder in terms of the truth, because people are so convinced that they need the Chopper Read character to be real, that they accepted all this rubbish because it was entertaining. And I guess in the back of their minds, they know it's probably not true, but they'd have no idea exactly how little truth there was in those stories. I went through everything. I got his prison record, which no one else had ever had, and got to talk to some people who'd known him all through his childhood. You start to see the boy become the man, the fabulous, the fantasist, who dreamed of being a Wild West cowboy or a gangster and killing people. And it was all...
And the people's vigilante,
Yeah, and just really a sad little boy who didn't have enough friends, who thought that telling stories and being violent would earn him friendships. It's quite a sad story in many ways, but quite a sad story.
Yeah. Another sad story. I want to know your opinion on the William Tyrrell case, because we're talking 11 years ago now. Little William Tyrrell, the little boy in the Spider-Man suit. I would have thought for sure that there's been an inquiry. There's been an inquiry into this. I would have thought, and Gary Jubilant was the head detective in charge of all that, has made a career out of his podcast. He was taken off that for illegally recording a telephone conversation. I wonder if Gary had stayed on the case, we'd have a result by now. But what do you think has happened, and where do you think this is going, and when will this family, when will we, because I just look at the little boy in the Spider-Man suit and it breaks my heart.
I make no allegations there, Luke. It's a very complicated story. The police have pretty solid information, but information's not evidence.
No.
It's not evidence. I think the big problem, you mentioned Jubilant, he became fixated with the neighbour, the refrigeration mechanic, and he believed he'd done it. And I think that was a classic case of tunnel vision. And in the end, they couldn't prove the case. The state of New South Wales had to pay him out a large amount of money. That's often forgotten in the Jubilant story. And I think he was a good detective, but I think it's a classic case of you can't get too close to the victim's family because everyone is a suspect. And I think there was a rush to judgment there, which I think hampered the case from the beginning. And I don't blame people for going for a good suspect, but you've got to keep everything on an even keel. And I know some of Jubilant's colleagues within New South Wales Homicide Squad were quite frustrated about the way that was handled. There have been other searches since trying to find poor little William's body. A lot of infighting in the force over this. And he's one of many, many missing people in this country who need to be found. And he's a high profile one, but you've got hundreds of other people who are nobodies because the media doesn't cover them. And there's actually a fantastic book that I would direct people to about these people called Lost by Nicole Morris. She has put together, she founded the Australian Missing Persons Register, has religiously followed these cases, dealing with the families, dealing with the loved ones who, hope against hope, still believe they can get a result, and keeps the police up to the mark in investigating these things and all new leads that come up.
And there's another one that constantly plays on my mind because I'd only just left Bathurst in December 1999. In 2001, Janine Vaughan went missing in Bathurst, and a person of interest, you don't ever want to be described as a person of interest, was He was the deputy mayor of Bathurst, Brad Hosemans. He was a senior detective, and he was a person of interest. He has since been, he's no longer, absolutely no longer. But that was 2001. Janine Vaughan, still missing.
Yeah, I haven't covered that case. I know about it. I've read about it. I think police have to keep all options open. I mean, it's very rare that a person of interest is fully eliminated, because often you don't know what you don't know. And there might be some people out there. And if anybody is listening to this podcast and you've got some information, however small, however trivial, you should call Crime Stoppers, 1-800-333-000, and share that information, because that could be the piece that brings the solution to these mysteries. And there are so many like that. And even where there are rewards, Luke, people still don't come forward because they fear they might be charged with something themselves, or they might be doing something they shouldn't have been doing at the time, sleeping with somebody else's wife, this type of thing. So I'd urge anybody who's got information about any crime to come forward and call Crime Stoppers.
Okay, listen, there's always something else to talk to you about. Can we talk again in a few weeks, and we'll have a look at some of these stories, unsolved mysteries that have been solved, with a fascinating story like poor old Herman Rockefeller. And you never cease to amaze and fascinate me, Adam Shan.
Yeah, there are so many stories. I mean, this week, for instance, we said goodbye to one of the great villains in Australian criminal history, Kath Pettingill, Granny Evil. She was the matriarch of the Pierce Pettingill clan, which were some of the most unspeakable crooks in Victoria's history, involved in rape and murder and allegedly cop killing and drug dealing and all kinds of things. And she got to the ripe old age of 91. And it's funny, there's a little anecdote about her that that she was a kid, she decided she was going to pray to Satan because she believed Satan was stronger than God. And one of her prayers to Satan was that she'd get 10 children. And that's what she got in the end. And 3 of them were taken away for adoption and lived honest, productive lives under different names. And the other 7, just about all of them, became really serious crooks. And she regretted that till the day she died, I believe. She was in a nursing home out in the country, and she tried to get away from Melbourne, but the evil deeds of her kids followed her. And I actually quite like Kat. She was a good contact of mine, and she used to ring me up from time to time whenever the story would come back in. She'd say, she'd call me, "G'day, love, how you going? They're talking about me again. How can we stop it?" I said, "Kath, you're never going to stop it because your family is notorious." I mean, of course, October 1988, when 2 young police officers were gunned down in Wall Street, South Yarra, allegedly by one of her son, or at least 2 of her kids were involved in that, allegedly. They were acquitted, mind you, only because the principal witness, Victor Pearce's wife, Wendy, somersaulted the coppers and didn't give evidence. That family is always going to be linked in infamy to that crime.
Yeah. And there's another question. There are so many questions, but there's another question that we could probably do a deep dive into another day, Shandy, and that is arguably Australia's most infamous serial killer, Ivan Milat, who has now passed away. Did he work alone?
Well, this is an interesting question, because we've currently got an inquiry in the lower house of New South Wales Parliament into unsolved murders between about the 70s and 2000s, whatever. And Milat's name comes up time and time again. And it's always convenient to put it on Ivan Milat. I don't think he did half the things people are trying to ascribe to him, because he was a trophy keeper. If he killed somebody, he would take an item of theirs and store them, because he could then relive the thrill of killing somebody. And all the trophies that were found at his residence had been linked to the 7 victims who were killed in the Belangolo State Forest. And so I think it's reasonably unlikely that I'm sure there are more crimes, but not the volume that are ascribed to Milat. The one people should look at is Bendali Debs, who was the killer of Rod Milk. So it was the killer of Rod Miller and Gary Silk in 1998, 2 police officers. He killed another 2 young women. And I think he's right for several other murders. He's currently in jail in Victoria serving a life sentence. And I think he is pure, undiluted evil. And he managed to stay off the radar for a very long time and commit these offences. He's never really been held to account for all of them. And I'm going to do some work on him soon. and look at these unsolved crimes, because it's too easy to say Milat did everything. And when you make that conclusion based on coincidence, scant evidence, and just wishful thinking, you allow somebody else to get off scot-free. And I think the victims of these crimes deserve, like I said about William Tyrrell, an open mind, be led by the evidence rather than notoriety. And Milat was, let's face it, he was a very evil bastard. But there are other evil bastards. And I remember talking to Clive Small, he's now late, he was the head of the task force that looked into Milat. And he was also convinced that there were more Milat crimes, but there was also at least one serial killer operating between Wollongong and Newcastle in that same period. There were lots of girls who'd gone missing. For instance, Trudy Adams is one.
Trudy Adams rings true with us in our household, Adam, because that happened, I think, 1978, could have been 79, and it was at Newport on the Northern Beaches, and she was hitchhiking. And Nikki, the Minister for War and Finance, said that everybody in her year, we were in the same year, but I may have left to start work at 2GB. It was either 78 or 79. She said that stopped her peers and her age group. It stopped everybody hitchhiking.
I used to hitchhike from Sydney up to Palm Beach at the same era, and we all did it.
Yeah.
And there was at least a couple of really nasty characters patrolling those roads looking for young girls. A fellow called Neville Tween.
That's
who
right.
is likely to have been the killer of Trudy Adams, and he may well be right for other murders as well. He's dead now, unfortunately, but he's got a couple of associates who may still be able to supply information there. But there's several. There's also Tanya Farrington, who people believe might have been a Milat victim, but I think she might have also been a Tween victim. And it was just open season in this era where there was no CCTV cameras, DNA in its infancy, and I think you've got to keep an open mind and keep working these cases, because the witnesses are getting old now. They clearly have not shared all the information that's possible. And I'd like to see, listen, the cold case homicide team of New South Wales Police does a great job, I got to tell you. There's some very dedicated long-term people in that squad, and I could name them, but they know who they are. And I'd like to see more resources going into, one of the arguments against this lower house inquiry in New South Wales is that it is becoming a Milat inquiry, and New South Wales Police are being forced to spend a lot of time, a lot of money to answer the requests of this inquiry, which is, they say, is little more than a fishing expedition, when they should be working on the real evidence, the real trails of clues that could resolve these cases.
Well, the William Tyrrell thing, circling back to William Tyrrell, he's kind of become Australia's Madeleine McCann. His little boy, no body, disappeared. Is he still alive? Is he living another life somewhere? Or it's just, everyone needs closure, particularly his family. And you talk about cold cases, Shandy, and I wonder how many other victims there are, maybe Neville Nobodies who have never been missed, maybe not, victims of Nettie Smith or Christopher Dale Flannery or Abe Saffron, and those kind of people. How many people are just missing as a direct result of those people that we just don't know about?
You've also got, I'm not quite sure the number, I know it's in the hundreds, of sets of unidentified human remains.
Really?
In New South Wales, in Victoria, in Queen, and some of them are in graves at Rookwood Cemetery, and the problem is, if you want to go there now to get a DNA sample from those remains, you have to go down through the layers of other people to get to them.
Oh no!
And you would need, and to exhume those remains would require the permission of the loved ones of those other individuals before you get to them.
No!
Because if you could do that, you could now run modern forensic investigative genetic techniques to build a family tree for these people, and you would solve some of these disappearances. I was involved in one up in New South Wales, Yamina, where a jawbone washed up on Yamina Beach. I was doing a podcast for the cops in New South Wales at the time, and we were trying to I was working with the detectives, and we were trying to link this thing to other missing persons cases from the 40s and the 30s, thinking it must be very old because there was no case that corresponded to it. But in the end, it turned out through this forensic investigative genetic technology to be a young man, Henry George Coleman, who'd fallen off a cliff in 1980, been in the surf for a week, body horribly mushed up, and he was identified through hair, and so he wasn't recorded as a partial recovery. So in the end, the final scene of that story was taking the jawbone back to the family and burying him with dignity. And this can be done in lots and lots of cases. So sometimes the answer is in the file, as the famous detective Ron Iddles used to say.
Yeah.
And and I think sometimes the answer is actually in the morgue or in Rookwood Cemetery to be found yet.
Do you think we'll ever find Melissa Caddick's body, the rest of it? They found the foot. This is the scammer, the Ponzi scheme artist. She has embezzled millions of dollars, most of it her close friends and family, disappeared. They found the foot. There's more to this case than meets the eye, is there, Adam?
No, there's less than meets the eye. There's something people don't realise about that whole investigation. When she went missing, there was the line of inquiry that she had taken off, right?
Yes.
And that she's got on a boat and she'd taken off, and valuable time was wasted on that fruitless search when they should have done the full air, land and sea search, which normally would happen when you have a suicide in that area, the Gap, Dover Heights, that area. So valuable days were lost chasing wild geese, if you like. It was only after several days the detectives realised, well, we made a mistake here. They went to the water police and said, if she did jump off the Gap, where would her body be now?
Yeah.
And very senior, very experienced detective there said, you'll find her on the south coast.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. They found her foot still inside the shoe. And there's all these wild stories that she'd sawed her own leg off. This is just.
Well, how did the foot come off? How did the foot come off?
Well, she got eaten. She got eaten as you would if you're drifting along, providing sustenance to various marine life. And unfortunately, that's the simple story is usually the truth rather than the elaborate story, because it's the old thing: failure to search is failure to find. And if they'd launched the air, land, and sea search, there'd be none of this wild conspiracy stuff that she sawed her own foot off and she's living in Brazil or some nonsense, And
that's a good yarn. That's a good yarn.
Well, people, it's like the Chopper Read syndrome. People prefer the good story rather than the cold hard truth.
Yeah.
And this is why I call my podcast Real Crime with Adam Shand, because true crime ain't so true anymore, because people prefer the wild conspiracy story or the blacker than black Gotham City style villain. It's like with Mr. Cruel here in Victoria. Yeah. Mr. Cruel persists as this shadowy offender who was creeping into people's homes and stealing little girls and raping them and putting them back until he murdered Carmen Chan. 10 or more cases. It's complete rubbish. Complete rubbish. I proved in my podcast, Creating Mr. Cruel, that there was at least 2 or 3 offenders involved in this. And again, it's this whole thing, having this tunnel vision around trying to catch a profile. You let the actual offenders go. Good police know this, but the true crime industry is based around the most sexy story. And that's what runs, unfortunately.
So you're suggesting strongly here that Melissa Caddick, that's the end of it, and that she is possibly now shark and crab shit, and the story is no longer afoot. That's it. Nothing more to it.
Yeah. Well, you see, and the thing is, the suicide, and I don't want to, listen, I think we should put a trigger warning about this because people are triggered by these sorts of stories, But,
sure.
But,
so I shouldn't be.
Con people, in my experience, don't have a plan B.
Really?
They are so convinced that everyone believes what they're doing and that they'll find a way to get through the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so when she was confronted by the search and the fact that the cops knew exactly what she'd done, created this enormous Ponzi scheme, ripped off everybody, including her own family, living with the shame of that was too much for her. And she's living up there on the above the cliffs at Watson's Bay, Dover Heights. And she's made the 100-foot guilty plea and jumped off. And that should be where it stopped. Had they done the proper search, they would have found her body the same day, and we'd have had none of this wild conspiracy stuff. And they would have buried her body whole. Most of the people that unfortunately do take their own lives up at the Gap, they are recovered very quickly because, and there's a well-practiced routine now because it happens so frequently. And it's so sad. But any time that there's a delay in that, like if it happens at night and the body's not found in the next few hours, they do drift south. Strong currents take, you look at the Sydney Hobart, see how they race down the coast, with the right winds down there. So, failure to search is failure to find. But these stories die hard. I note recently I was actually surprised to see that the liquidator of all that Ponzi scheme managed to get 41 cents in the dollar for Caddick's victims. I think that's an absolute miracle. So
I think it's a miracle
amazing work there. Because normally all this stuff gets pissed up against the wall and it's gone. But so monstrous fraud, couldn't live with the guilt of that, took her own life, very sad, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, look, all jokes aside, Lifeline 13 11 14, if this is triggering for you. I keep saying last thing, but I've got to ask you this, and we can look at these stories down the track because there's so much. Do you think we'll ever find out exactly what happened to Harold Holt, or is there less to that than meets the eye as well? Or are they still looking for a dingo with a snorkel? What's going on?
Dingo with a snorkel. Yeah, we never will. Cheviot Beach, where he went in for a swim, is a very, very difficult beach to swim with heavy rips. He was a strong swimmer, but as far as I'm concerned, the simple explanation is the best one, and that there was no Chinese sub waiting for him.
Chinese submarine, that's the one, Chinese sub, yeah.
All that stuff going on, And, it's a bit like the missing jail boss, David Prideaux, who disappeared in the Victorian High Country. There's all these dark plots about how he was murdered to cover up this or that or the other. If you're going to kill somebody, go the simple route. Go the simple route because
let's not encourage people. No, stop.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop. But always go for the simple explanation because elaborate conspiracies rely upon a conspiracy of silence, and people like to tell stories. The Hells Angels say that two people can keep a secret if one of them's dead. And that's the dictum that I hold to. I mean, this stuff drives the whole true crime industry. And, that's why, as I said before, I call my company Real Crime because I'm interested in real crimes and you've got to knock down your own theories. I spent years knocking down Chopper Reed's theory. Yeah. I spent years knocking down the Mr. Cruel theories because it lets real people down. And you can imagine the pain, that Melissa Caddick's family suffers each time this comes up, some wild thing. It's hard enough to have someone in your family who's ripped everybody off and then taken their own life. It's hard enough to live with without people coming up and saying, "Oh, she's alive," And the same for Madeleine McCann. I hope and pray that that she might be alive, but boy, it's highly unlikely.
Real Crime with Adam Shand. Wow, we've been on a bit of a journey today, Shandy boy. Can we do it again down the track?
We can indeed. No worries, Luke.
There it is, Real Crime with Adam Shand.
Welcome to a show called The Man Cave. Man Cave. With Bona on the mic, it's a good day. Good day. Adam McDonald and Kelsey too. Thomas behind the scenes, producing all the goods.
And we're rolling.
Who are those little guys at the front?
I'm going to get to that.
Here we go. Here we go.
Folks, g'day. You've just interrupted our pre-show chat, but we may as well make it part of the show because a lot goes on behind the scenes. And I want to welcome to the Man Cave the Vice Captain again from Evans Hastings. And look at his flash new media room in the nation's capital, Adam McDonald. A very good morning. Okay, that's enough.
And a very good morning to you. It's quite a thing to get out of my dingy little office, unlit office, into like a nice space. So I'll give it up to my media manager, Dan, who's put it all together.
Vice Captain, you've spared no expense. What about
no expense.
You're going to put a picture on the wall or something, you cheap bastard? What's going on? Surely. Oh, look at that. It's he's strobing his light. Do that again. That's very close. Look at that.
Might put a picture of you up here, Skip.
Okay. Don't do that too often. A warning, if you suffer epilepsy, you might be fitting right now. Anyway. And you can hear a little chuckle in the background because all the way from Yorkie's Knob, we've got Granny Sue back for a little bit of Granny Sue sensible comment. Hello, my darling precious.
Hello, Luke.
Good morning, Granny.
Morning, Adam.
And the Vice Captain is here having a Barocca. Did you see that? She's having a Barocca at this time of the big night for Kelsey.
It's not a Barocca.
Was it watermelon juice?
No, it's a raspberry lemonade solo.
Anyway, that's fascinating.
It's a bit early for fizz.
It's really good, guys. If you want it, it's new. It's new on the shelves. It's really good. I rate it.
Okay. Now, listen, Adam's new studio, a few more decorations are going to go up. It's a work in progress.
Yep.
But Kelsey, the three wise men sitting on the desk in front of the Vice Captain, don't say anything, Adam. Do you know who that is?
No idea.
We'll give you a hint. Can't
touch this.
Oh no, it's down.
Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, you're way off, Skipper.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to do it again.
Way off.
I'm going to do it again.
I don't know.
Walk this way, talk this way.
LL Cool J.
Run DMC. They had a hit with Aerosmith. Walk this way.
What do they teach kids in school these days? I put this out to all my younger staff, and they're like, "Is that Biggie Smalls? Is it Tupac?" And I'm like, "Man, where's your history? Come on."
Anyway, and what's that on top of his boombox behind him, Kelsey?
That's a stereo.
And what's on top of the stereo?
Oh, that's E.T. Phone Home.
Yes, thank you.
I know that one.
She got that one.
Thank you.
Anyway, welcome aboard, everybody. There's a little bit to get through today. And Granny Sue, just first of all, we've had a lot of feedback from our listeners concerned about your future living situation. Last time we spoke, you've sent us a message saying that if your rent goes up, we talk about cost of living, Adam, you may have to move back in with your son. What's the latest?
Yeah, nothing's changed. So far, the rent hasn't gone up, and I haven't heard anything more about the house being sold. I think this new tax thing has put a kibosh on a lot of stuff, but I'll keep you informed. Don't worry.
Well, this happens. When I lived in Sydney, I was renting a house over in Campsie, and I got an email from the real estate agent that said, we're going to send an assessor over to have a look at the house. And I'm like, okay, maybe they're going to sell it. They put my rent up $100 in one foul swoop. Like that's a big whack. That is a big whack.
Well, if you've got a lease, they can only do that after your lease term has expired.
Yeah, but I've been living there for like 3 or 4 years, so there was the 6 months lease was irrelevant anyway. But $100 in one foul swoop, it was a tough pill to swallow.
And there was a girl that I worked with at another radio station just last year, and she had been renting for 3 years a place that cost $650. And her lease was up. She'd been a brilliant tenant. She'd painted the place. She'd done repairs. She got a friend in to fix a couple of washers so that the landlord didn't have to get a plumber in. She loved it. And when her lease ran out, it went up $150 a week.
Yeah. See, I spoke to the guy that owned the house. I was on quite good terms with him because he had some timber stored down the side of the house, so he'd come in and out to pick it up. And he said to me, like, because I really loved mowing the lawn. Like, I'm a lawn porn guy. I love mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
So I looked after the yard. I had all these tyre swans. It was a beautiful backyard. But he said, no one's ever looked after the yard as good as you have, and I really appreciate it. And then he slaps me with a $100 hike. I mean, I had magpies that I'd feed. They'd eat out of your hand. Like, it was a great place.
I love mowing the lawn.
You know what? It's cathartic. It is. It's like vacuuming the pool. If you just go slowly backwards and forwards, you work out all the day's problems in your head. It's
exactly right.
It's like pressure washing something.
Yeah. And like I'd mow the lawn, then I'd water it on a Sunday afternoon, and that smell that you'd get. Like this backyard, it had an outhouse. Like it was an old school backyard. I had a 2-car garage.
Where was this? Where was this?
It was in Campsie.
Oh, did you have a dunny lane?
No, there was nothing out.
Okay,
no,
right.
the only problem I had with the people over the back had a macadamia tree.
Yeah,
and the macadamia nuts would fall in my yard and cause havoc with my lawnmower.
Yes, it would. Granny Sue, what do you do to relax? Is there a chore that you do that you actually enjoy because you can kind of just think through the day's worries?
Well, not anymore. I mean, in the old days, I used to go out and play with animals, but I don't have an animal. I've got a fish now, but that doesn't.
But what about vacuuming? Vacuuming backwards and forwards and just.
No, that's just a job. I was never an inside person. I was always outside person. So anything outside, even fixing a fence, was better than vacuuming the house or washing up or doing anything like that.
Anyway. Hey, listen, we hope that you stay where you are because we know that you love it. And if not, we'll do a GoFundMe. And,
no, you won't.
Yes,
no, you will not.
What?
No, you will not.
Okay, well, if we don't do a GoFundMe, what we'll do is we'll send you a Bonafide T-shirt. I don't... and that might help ease the pain. Hey, listen, just before we jump into some hot topics, some news through today that the Bureau of Meteorology... Now, how many of us... When they want to know what tomorrow's weather or next week's weather, or you look ahead a week from Christmas and you go, what's the weather going to be like? and you go to the BOM website.
Oh, yep.
How often are they wrong? The Bureau of Meteorology today has announced that they're going to launch an independent review, and this is following that intense public scrutiny because, as you might remember a little while ago, they spent $96 million on a website upgrade that didn't work. And then they also spent a lot of time on marketing and their logo because they didn't want to be called the BOM. They wanted to be called the Bureau of Meteorology. Well, we in the media still kept referring to them as the BOM and they gave up. But they spent $96 million. It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It's
but also
and it was shit.
But also
it was absolute shit.
But just let me just tell you a bit more. And there were farmers and fishers and emergency volunteers complaining that the data that was published on this $96 million website was inaccurate. And there were people looking for the flood warnings and their sensors at different flood areas around New South Wales, Lismore, for example, Kelsey, didn't work. And so there were people depending on this taxpayer-funded enterprise, and it wasn't working. So they're launching an independent review into all of this. Do you guys use the BOM website?
No, I was talking to a colleague about this the other day. Like these people that make these decisions to spend this sort of money, and it goes ass up. There's no recourse. Like whoever's at the head of the bureau has spent the money and goes, it didn't work. Let's just jog on. You've got old mate Dan down in Melbourne with the Commonwealth Games. Don't worry about it. Let's jog on. You had Christopher Pine in South Australia with those submarines. Don't worry. Let's just jog on. There's got to be some recourse for these people that are in these positions that make these decisions that go pear-shaped, and they just go, well, no worries. Well, let's just move on. Like it's horse shit.
If you look at the ex-CEO of Optus when there was that big drama, in fact they had two close together, fell on the sword. I mean, if you were the CEO of a business and you'd spent $96 million, 4.1 over budget. God, strike me pink. And it didn't work. You'd be accountable to the board and you could lose your job.
Yeah. And you should.
Ready, Sue?
Yes.
Thanks for that.
Agree. But BOM is absolutely hopeless. I mean, I even now use it a lot because I want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's just something I've done for years. And now that I have total access to it, I like to know what's going on. And even when it starts to rain here, you want to know if it's going to rain for 3 days or 2 days. Well, you can't really tell anymore. You used to be able to tell.
My dad used to say, if you want to see what the weather's going to do, stick your head out the window.
And if you get wet, it's probably raining.
It's going to be raining, yeah.
Exactly.
I still think my idea of the same way that footy players can get personally penalised if they do something shit, I think the same should be true for politicians. I think if you make major stuff up, that's it. You're fined $50,000 out of your salary or whatever it is.
But that sort of money. Like you look at the Commonwealth Games, that sort of money that cost Victoria, that's a jail sentence. Like it is absolutely outrageous. Like Christopher Pine and his submarines with bloody screen doors. Like that was never going to happen. He only said it to get in power and then he get asked. Like it is absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, listen, Adam, they had leather seats and they had electric windows. Okay?
Yeah, good-o.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Hey, do we need to call this the womb tomb because we've got two ladies?
Well, I was thinking about this. Just yesterday. I think we need more ladies. In the man cave. Absolutely. I've got a colleague here that is opinionated on absolutely everything. Maybe we can
bring her in and we'll really make it the womb tomb.
Maybe we'll get her in.
Bring her in. And everybody's welcome. But yeah, so I want some feedback. Leave us a voice message, 0291289311, or send us an email. Do you trust the Bureau of Meteorology? Are they getting it right? Or... they say, we can only use so much of the science. You can't predict the weather. That's what they're there for. I mean, I don't want an accurate weather forecast for the 6th of April 2032, but I wouldn't mind knowing what tomorrow and the next day is going to be like. And am I being unreasonable to want to know what it's going to be like next Saturday? when I'm planning a party.
I mean, for people like us who live in the big cities, it doesn't really matter. I can understand the frustration with farmers and people who live on the land and
people who might be threatened by floods.
Yeah, and that really count. Like, but if it rains, it rains. Like, it's not real any consequence to me, is it?
Okay, but what if you're planning a wedding and you go, I really need to know what the weather's going to be like Saturday. Do we put up do we get a marquee or is it open? You know, things like that.
Yeah, I get you.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's not that big. Like, out of all the issues that are like plaguing the world right now, I feel like
it's the weather.
This is probably like low on the list.
Yeah, but wait till you have your wedding and you want to know, do you get a marquee or not, Kelsey? Then it'll be everything. It's something else, and I'm going to start with Granny Sue on this. In the United States, in Ohio, the Democrats, which is their version of the Labor Party, they're pushing to have the voting age lowered to 16. Now, in America, it's 21, and the drinking age in a lot of states is 21. But they did a poll, and it showed that 62% of Gen Z favours socialism, according to the report. And so there's a push to lower the voting age to 16. Let's forget the political rhetoric. Let's look at that. Granny Sue, in your opinion, is a 16-year-old mature enough upstairs to be able to vote? What do you think? 16. And just let me prefix this by saying there are plenty of 16-year-olds that have left school who are working and paying taxes. So what do you think, Granny Sue?
I think there is a lot of 16-year-olds that are quite capable of voting, but there's also a lot that are not capable of even tying their shoelaces.
But it's not compulsory, so they wouldn't have to if they didn't want to, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's the only way to have it. If they want to vote at 16 and it's legal, then they are entitled to vote. But I don't think it should be something that's compulsory or
no, it's not. It's America. It will never be compulsory. And in fact, there was talk of the same sort of thing here in Australia, but saying it wouldn't be compulsory. Adam, Vice Captain, is a 16-year-old ready to vote?
I'm sort of on the fence with this because I know what I was like at 16 and I was nowhere near ready to vote. But with social media and internet and all that sort of stuff, 16-year-olds are much more informed than I was at that age. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
At 16, I don't think you might have a point of view that could be horseshit, you know? Like, I don't think you've been around long enough to form a solid opinion about stuff. Yeah, I don't think so.
Are you saying that maybe at 16 you're more likely to vote how your parents vote, and you may be indoctrinated by your parents or your teachers or whatever?
Well, I still vote how my dad voted. Like that's what the family does. But I think at 16 you'd be sort of like, I read this thing on Instagram and this is what I think, and now I'm going to vote for the Koala Foundation. Do you know what I mean? Like you sort of go off on these.
What's wrong with the Koala Foundation?
Well, they've all got chlamydia, Luke. Let's be honest.
Well, that's from having sex.
But you can go off on these little tangents that don't really matter.
Millennial, what, you're dying to say something.
Well, I think you have to remember the context in which this is happening. In Ohio, people can vote at 18, not 21. We're talking about 2 years of difference there.
Yep.
Obviously, America, it's not compulsory voting. So the likelihood of 16-year-olds taking a couple of hours out of their day to vote anyway is pretty low. But the kids that do want to vote and do want to say, and this is only for local and state elections they're talking about, they're not talking about federal elections. So I don't know, I think encouraging younger voters is a good thing.
There's a big debate about compulsory voting, which we have here in Australia and America, non-compulsory voting. They will say the ultimate democracy is not having to do anything. In Australia, I guess, you've got bigger numbers, but because you get... By the way, it's not compulsory to vote in Australia. It is compulsory to have your name ticked off the ballot paper.
That's right.
You can vote informally. You can just walk in, get the ballot paper and put an empty one back in the box.
Yep.
It's compulsory to turn up. Having said that, Kelsey, it really is, the system in America, I think, falls short because, one, here in Australia, voting day is always a Saturday and a weekend. In America, it's a weekday. And so if you're at work and you've got to line up to vote, a lot of bosses don't give you time off to vote. Maybe they should. But the other thing is you've got to register to vote. So you can't just turn up and have your name ticked off. You've actually got to do all that beforehand. You've got to register to vote. So it's a different system.
Well, that's why America is where America is, because the only people that vote are the lunatics that go through all that. I mean, look who's running the bloody country. Like that's why if I don't think there's anyone good to vote for, I'm not going to throw my hat in the ring. So I'll go in and get my name ticked off, draw a dick and balls on the ballot paper, and then walk away. In America, the only people that are voting are the Trump type of people. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do think, at least from the online discourse, that Americans, so many people, there's this movement called fuck around and find out, because a lot of Republicans
What is
are...
it? What is it? Is it a party?
Fuck around and find out. So,
is it the fuck around find out party?
So this this essential movement, right? It's Republicans that voted for Trump, so they fucked around, and now they're in the finding out stage.
Yeah,
and they're coming online and saying, I regret my vote.
Who's Trump's opposition? No one knows. Like, I don't know who's Trump's opposition is.
No, but they don't know yet either. They haven't sorted that out.
Can't they put Kamala back? Kamala?
Yes. Yeah,
Camilla. She'd be a gunner. Yep.
Do you think Hillary Clinton's done her dash?
Yes.
Yeah. She's got a bad last name.
Anyway, Granny Sue.
Yes.
I'm going to move on to another topic. I want to ask you, do you enjoy Election Day and voting? Because I do. I actually like it. It's social. I get to walk down to my old primary school. I look up at Mrs. Bailey's classroom where I watched Man Who Did Walk on the Moon in 1969, and I get it. You've got a cramp. What's happened there? And I get a democracy sausage. I quite like Election Day. Is Granny Sue?
No, I postal vote.
Ah, which is interesting because...
You're one of those ones.
Because... why don't you go to the school?
Because you go stand around for hours, you walk in, tick your name off, we're there for 2 seconds and walk out. No, just easy to sit at home, fill out the form.
No, I'm with you, Granny.
I have lived many years out bush where there was none of this garbage went on that goes on in town. Thank you very much. And I still don't like it much.
Okay, which takes me to my next issue about all things compulsory. Tuesday, the 11th of August, coming up, is the 2026 census. And yes. And so if on Tuesday night you just happen to be having a dinner party, or imagine if there was a big sporting event on, everybody in your house has to be registered at your address, whether they're there normally or not. Now, there is an online system, and there's a listen to this, Vice Captain, there's a 16-digit census number and a password from your letter that you got in the mail, and there is a paper form delivered if you request it. Otherwise, it's taken for granted that you're going to do the census online using your 16-digit number and your special password.
Oh, I haven't got no letter.
You should have it in the mail. Ours came yesterday.
Oh, maybe. I probably haven't checked my letterbox for
ours came. Pretty sure Nathan already did ours.
For a couple of weeks.
He did it on the wrong night, Kelsey.
No, you can pre-submit.
Really?
Yeah. You just have to have it done by that night.
So Nathan's gone off early again. Because the thing is, the census, when you look at it, is an important slice of information. It tells you how many people are living somewhere. It can help governments plan infrastructure. But they ask you questions about what religion are you? What sex are you? There were questions that, and you've got to answer them. I remember a few years ago, Vice Captain and Granny Sue, they asked on the religion question, the most popular religion in Australia was Jedi Knight. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. Yes, I mean that's just so Australian. Just to
how good is that?
Take the piss. Yes.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. When it comes to the sex question, my mother just put yes, please.
Oh, that's so good.
What do we think about the census, Kelsey? Do you have a problem?
No.
What's it for? Like, what's it? What's it? What does it? What does it do?
I just told you to plan for infrastructure, growth, more schools needed here, better roads here.
It's just for data.
So the census, Adam, go and check.
Yeah, I'll check my letterbox. Yeah.
Speaking of very Australian things, though, did you guys see this American man on a train in Sydney preaching?
No. Have you got the clip?
Okay, it's the response that he received from people, very Australian.
All right, let's watch this.
Is no other way to God. It's not about religion. It's about a relationship with the creator of heaven and earth. He created you, and yet you rebel against him. You run because the pleasures of this life and the taste of sin is too great. All he wants you to do is love him. He doesn't want you to do anything else except love him and have a relationship.
All I want you to do is shut up and leave me alone.
No one wants to hear it, bro. Be quiet.
A lot of people hear it.
Then can't you go and stand on the street with your fucking signs and wait for people to come?
And I've done that.
Maybe give a
All right?
sign, give a book so we can
I've been
read
in prisons in El Salvador. I've been in the slums of India. I've been in...
Nobody cares. Okay, we all have our stories.
Sure.
Sure. I'm not trying to inflict mine on you, so just shut up, please.
And you wonder why the world is the way that it is.
I wonder why you won't pay any attention to the people who are asking you to keep your opinion to yourself.
Because I care about your soul. One day you're going to die
Man,
and
you're
stand
not
before
listening.
God.
It's great that you care, but I don't want you to tell me this shit, okay? I don't care if you love me. I don't know you.
I know that. But true love loves freely.
Oh,
it
this
doesn't
guy's
have to
such
be
a
returned. Right?
Oh my God.
You're angry. I'm not angry.
You sound angry.
I am not. I'm angry that you're so desensitized to the evil around you. That your children are suffering and you don't care. All you care about is making more money. All you care about is more sin. You don't care about
He's
anything.
judging.
It's a selfish world.
He's very
we live
judgy,
in.
isn't he?
And you need to repent because people are
Who's the
hurting.
selfish one?
He's very
Who's the one who
judgy.
won't shut up with their opinions?
You're-
How selfish
You're
is
getting
that?
Yeah. Oh my Christ! Imagine
I'll
being
tell
on
ya.
imagine being on a train or a bus with that.
I'll tell you a story.
Oh.
I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about my dear old dad. He used to work like Granny. Used to work on a big sheep station he was probably in his early 20s, and he had these Texans come over to check out the farm and how we do stuff. And they're riding along the electric fence, and they get to the junction box. It's all covered in spider webs, and it's looking all dusty. And one of the Texans pipe up and said, "Oh, do you have to clean it, or does the electricity still run through it if it's covered in spider webs and stuff like that?" And the old man turns to him and says, "Yeah, we just when we get to the junction boxes, one of us just piss on it and cleans it off."
Oh,
no! And this Texan pulled it out.
Oh no!
And pissed on this junction box, and it went straight up into him.
Yeah.
This could be a furphy that the old man used to tell, but the Texans were supposed to be there for 2 weeks, 2 days. They left and said,
There's an old saying, Granny Sue.
Australia's not for us.
Granny Sue, there's an old saying: you never piss on an electric fence, do you?
No way in the world.
Yeah. But
I didn't know that electricity could travel like that.
Oh, yeah.
Water is a massive conductor of it.
Straight up there.
Water is a massive conductor of electricity, liquid. This is how come I knew that my mother
I've
really
got a really fucked up question.
This is how I knew that my mother really didn't like me very much, because she gave me a toy to play with in the bath when I was little, and it was a toaster. But
I've got a really
Go. Let it go, Kels.
So if you poked a hole in a condom and then wore that condom and then piss on the fence, would you still get electrocuted?
No, don't work. No, don't work.
Yes, you would.
Because the water goes through the hole.
It goes through the hole. Both holes. The
That
hole
might
in the
make it
condom and the
even more-
hole in the...
That could even make it more concentrated.
Insulate it. Oh God, that wouldn't be good.
This is where we're at.
Is this where we've got to today?
Yep, this is where we're at.
You're a sick puppy.
This is why we really need the targeted stories, because otherwise we're pissing on electric fences.
Well, thank you for that, Kelsey. But getting back to that preacher, you see, people like the Jehovah's Witnesses believe it's their job to knock on doors because they're doing you a favor. They see the big picture as saving your soul.
Yeah.
And so they believe they're doing the right thing.
Look, I've got another story. This is about my grandma.
Are we pissing on fences here, or are we shooting down rabbit holes? What are we doing?
Where my grandma used to live out at Bacchus Marsh on a farm, and there used to be a big staircase going up to a front door, and there was a doorbell down the bottom. And one day the Jehovah's Witnesses turned up.
Yeah.
And they said that we're here to preach the word of Jehovah. And I was literally standing next to her, hanging onto her apron, like I would have been 4 or 5, like I was a little tacker. And up behind the Jehovah's Witness, this brown snake came up the driveway. So Grandma reached just inside, as she had, was a 22 rifle just inside the door. Literally said, "Excuse me," and then shot this snake and blew it in half with a 22. Blew it in.
It would have been a shotgun, surely.
No, it was a 20. It was only a little thing. It was a 22. Blew it in half, and then she put it down. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, they did not know what the fuck to do, like whether to thank her, whether to curse her, and let's just say they never came back again. They never came knocking on the door again.
If they'd done their research in the Old Testament, it was a snake that spoke to Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Exactly.
And
they should have thanked
convinced her to eat the forbidden fruit, and that snake may have been making an appearance with some more great advice.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
But don't you think that the response that this man received, to me, I think is such a good reflection of Australian culture, which we've been talking a lot about recently, because we don't care what you practice. You know, you can, like you guys always say, you can be blue, black, brindle, whatever, practice any religion you want. Just don't force it onto others.
Can you just do me a favour? Don't play the whole. Can you just play me another 20 seconds of it, Kelsey? I just want to see something.
He's lucky someone didn't put one on his chin. Yeah.
I just want to.
It's crazy. You're
the selfish one because you won't shut up.
Right. I'm the selfish one.
Yes. Can you not see that? You're forcing your opinion on everyone in this train.
Right.
We are asking you to shut the fuck up. And do you? No. How selfish is that?
Your behaviour.
He's gobsmacked. He's absolutely gobsmacked.
Do you think he really means the best for his brothers and sisters that he loves, and he's trying to put Jesus into their heart, or does he have a mental illness?
It's like they said. It's
or
just
is it just pure American arrogance?
It is. It's American arrogance, and it's him being selfish. Wonder Boy is a devout Christian, right?
Is he?
He reads the Bible every night. Like he can talk religion with anyone, but he doesn't go around pushing his ideology on anyone. Like his mother's gay. So it's just like you be you, I'll be me. I believe what I believe, and I have these conversations with him, and I say to him, "We're cut from the same cloth. I don't need to read the book about it. Just don't be a prick." And he's like, "I get it, Dad. You're going to rot in hell. You're going to go to hell, but
that's your prerogative.
That's your prerogative. You can change it if you want to, but I'm not going to push. I'm not going to push my ideas on you because they're my ideas, and that's what I believe." So
hey, Granny Sue, have you ever had religious people knock on your door?
Yeah.
What's happened?
Well, I fixed them once. I saw them coming. Up.
Did you get the shotgun out?
No, I saw them coming up the street, so I met them with nothing on.
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
That's so good.
They didn't come back either.
Oh, that's sensational. How long ago was this?
Oh, probably
2 weeks.
Probably 20 years ago.
Oh, Granny, were you absolutely starkers?
Yep.
That's so good.
I was dragging a towel behind me like I'd just come out of the shower.
Use what God gave you, you know?
Yes.
That's exactly right.
They should have been accepting. This is how I came into the world. This is how I'm going to greet you. Absolutely.
Oh.
They could not say a word. They're sitting around, we'll talk to you later. I said, good, bye.
Oh,
that reminds me of the group in Brisbane that were caught doing a nudie run around the Gold Coast. Did you see that?
No. Have you got it
No.
there?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's have a look. What has she got up her sleeve now?
This is funny.
Bare-bottomed bolt is not meant for the naked eye. But a dozen derrieres were spotted sprinting down Tedder Avenue on full display.
Look at them go.
Are we really seeing this? But it was very entertaining and very quick.
Piling out of the mooning mobile on a crisp Friday night, the temperature at a delightful 11
shrinkage.
degrees.
There'd be shrinkage.
It was very
I've
cute,
been in the
and
pool.
everybody in the street is looking, and I just gathered it must have been a buck's night.
What if you got a cramp and you had to stop?
Or an erection, which is the same thing.
Stop.
It's 11 degrees. There's no erection.
No.
Yeah. As I said, there would be shrinkage. And an eyewitness apparently was asked, were they naked? And she says, I saw one old man there. If he wasn't naked, whatever he was wearing needed ironing. So
gross.
Oh dear.
There's been a lot of you can tell there's two women in the cave today because there's a lot of dick talk or
there's dick talk, there's dick talk, there's naked talk, there is pissing on electric fence talk, through condom talk. It really has. It's not the man cave.
Hey,
It's
that
called
was a scientific question. That was a scientific question. It was meant to be rude.
Okay, one last thing I want your thoughts on this. My thoughts and concern goes out to the service stations that are owned by private owners and franchisees. It might be a Shell, it might be a PP, it might be an Ampol, but you can franchise them out and you're an owner. The fuel excise relief has now ended and there's anger out there already. And a lot of service station attendants have reported that there's been a barrage of violence and threats and people filling up and taking off. They unscrew their number plates, fill up, take off, and put the plates on when they get home. So there are concerns that service stations, if this continues, will be all pay at the Bowser. Or you'll pay at a little night shelf that you see at some servos where they talk to you through the glass and you do not come in. But basically, it's to stop violence, but to stop the fill and run, you'll have to put in your PIN at the Bowser before it switches on. The reason this concerns me is because the owners of those service stations get bugger all a percentage of the fuel they sell.
Yeah, exactly
They
right.
get money from the milk, the pies, the chips, the Mother's Day flowers, the lollies. That's where they make their money. And if people don't go inside to pay for their fuel, they won't sell the bread and the eggs and those items, which are highly priced. They're convenience. That's where the servos make their money. And I'm concerned. What do you make of it? Granny Sue, do you want to go?
I think it's absolutely shocking that there's so much rage around, but I can understand it. A lot of us don't have a lot of money to spend. Why are the prices going up immediately? The excise is cut when the fuel that's already in the Bowsers has already been paid for. Why do we have to? Why can't they wait until they put the new fuel in before they put the price up?
You are 100%, Granny Sue. The day the fuel excise relief stopped, service stations went up to $2.20. There was one that was charging $2.60. But they were selling the inflated price at the price they bought it for, and they didn't buy the fuel under the tanks at the inflated price.
Well, that's right. And that, I think, is where most of the rage has come from, because people realise that they're not stupid. Well, that depends. But so many people realise that the fuel is already in the Bowsers, has already been paid for. So how come they can charge the inflated prices for that fuel? That's what I think is most of the rage is about.
Yeah, and I think that the most people that get the shits is how can there be such discrepancy between servos? Like, you can go on the fuel watch and you can find that one servo that's like 20 cents a litre cheaper. Like, how do you justify that? Surely it should be, if the excise is gone, it should the savings and the price should be across the board. I can understand 1 or 2 cents difference, but there's servos that are like 20 cents, 30 cents more expensive than others. So if they get a fill and run, too bad. Right.
But you see, the small operators that make their bread and butter out of bread and butter and the pies and the milk, the customers won't be coming in if servos say pay at the Bowser before the pump turns on.
I mean, it's that whole thing where it's like self-service at the supermarket, at Woolies and Coles and stuff, Like, it's like, oh, we're going to make it easier for you guys because you can do it yourself. And all that's doing is cutting employment out, like customer service. It just cuts all that shit out. I remember when self-serve servos was first was first a thing, and it was a big push. Like, wow, you get to do it yourself instead of having the young kid who's 16. Yeah, the young kid who's 16 years old trying to earn fucking $3 an hour, pumping your petrol, checking your tyres, all that sort of stuff.
You could click the pump on automatic, and while that was happening, they would do your windscreen.
Exactly. Check your tyres.
They would check your water. They would lift the bonnet. They would check your oil, and they do your tyres. Hence the name service station.
Exactly.
Granny Sue, here's a question for you. If you are serving yourself, for example, Woolies and Coles, should our groceries be a bit cheaper because we're doing the work?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. Back to the service station, that service part was one of my jobs. And I absolutely loved it.
Were you a service station attendant?
Yes, I was.
Tell us about it. Where was it? What was the servo? What did you have to do?
It was a Shell service station in Atherton, and I turned up there at 7 o'clock in the morning when the service station opened, and I served fuel, I checked tyres, I washed windscreens, I checked oil, I did everything. I really enjoyed it because you meet so many people.
Such an onion, layer by layer by layer, Granny.
You are an interesting
But listen,
how much was the fuel a litre? Do you remember?
Oh, about 60 cents.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry,
but I'll tell you about these when you go through these, the self-serve checkouts at Coles and Woolies. Like I make a
which
point.
I won't use.
Yeah, I make a point to steal something every single time. No. Whether it be like a little bit of ginger, a bit of garlic, something. But I make a point, and I'm like, that's for you, corporations.
I'm ashamed of you and Kelsey. The kleptomaniac corner. That's what we're going to call this now.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you this for free. My partner, she makes a point of doing it every single time, and she has a system, and she takes all these bags in, and I call them her Steely bags. And she gets something every single time.
It's stealing.
These corporations,
it's payback, Luke.
Exactly.
It's
These
payback.
corporations that price gouges and have us over a barrel because that's where we have to go to these major corporations. So I'm taking it. I'm stealing.
You can't justify. Granny Sue, we've been down this track with Klepto Kelsey before.
Yeah, we have. No, thank you. When I go to Woolies and there's only self-serve open, I will stand and wait, and I have waited until the manager has come and served me. Are you right, love? She'd say. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not going through self-service. She said, come with me. I'll take you through.
Good.
I refuse to use self-service. I don't work there. Why should I have to do my own stuff when I don't work there?
That's right.
If I want a job in Woolies, I'd get a job in Woolies.
That's right.
I don't work there, so I deserve to be served.
That's why I steal stuff.
Hey, listen, is it stealing if you have a couple of you've got a handful of grapes in your little bag and you're shopping for other things?
No, because you go into these, you go down the two major outlets. There's free fruit for kids. Yeah. So why can't I eat a fucking apple? Why can't I take a banana? Why can't I steal a packet of pasta?
They should do it at Liquorland. They should do it at Liquorland and BWS.
They should do it at Liquorland. Dan Murphy's, listen up.
Exactly. Free Bona beer day, and I'm there. I can't believe we've gone from the man cave to the womb tomb. Now it's Klepto Corner. I'm embarrassed to be part of this program. Listeners,
yeah, me too, Luke. Me too.
Hey, listen, I like spinach, believe it or not.
I'm going to run a poll. Is it okay to steal from Woolies and Coles? Like, just a nub of ginger. I'm not talking about stealing a whole roast chicken. I'm talking about an onion, sneaky avocado.
Here's the question to ask. Have you ever sampled, stolen, anything from Woolies or Coles? What was it? The monetary value? Do you feel as though it was stealing, or are you getting back at the big corporate boss and sticking it to him?
Sticking it to the man.
I'll tell you what. I was at a pub on Saturday night, and I was watching this guy stand at the bar. He was obviously a tourist. I can't pick where his accent was, but he asked the bartender to sample every single beer. So it was probably that much you know, probably an inch in the bottom of every schooner glass. He says, oh, can I try that one? Can I try that one? Can I try that one? Over the whole course, he probably had 2 schooners for free by trying the beers.
Maybe that's just a life hack, but I feel like some
Yeah,
bars
absolutely.
would get pretty pissed off if
I would have told him to go
everyone
away.
tried to do that.
Yeah, I would have told him to go away.
So, Kelsey, we're going to put online a poll. Have you ever stolen? What was it? Is it considered stealing if it's a sample? Let us
No,
know.
of course not. We already know the answer to that, Luke.
No, you've told yourself
No,
it's...
Kelsey, not always.
Okay, Granny, I'll put it up just for you, not for
Okay.
Luke. For
Now,
you.
can I get back to my bloody spinach story, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And don't call me Popeye. So when
Strong to the finish because you eat your spinach.
Sorry,
Don't give up your day job.
I just morphed then. Have you accepted Jesus into your life? I love you. So when silver beet or spinach is not in season, it's mostly stalk and a little bit of spinach. Is it okay to break off the stalk and just pay for the leaves?
Yes, I do it with broccoli.
Do ya?
Yes, because they have those big shit stems.
I
I will
eat stalk. What do you
No,
mean?
you're a psychopath. You snap it off, you leave it there. No,
You cut the hard bit off the outside, but the inside of the stem's quite good.
no, you don't. You leave it there.
Okay, Granny Sue, is it okay to break off the spinach if it's all stalk and just a little bit of leaf at the end when it's out of season?
But with
No, well, I wouldn't, because the people that have put the stuff there have already been. Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't, but as far as I'm
you
concerned,
stumped her. You stumped Granny Sue.
as far as I'm concerned, spinach is chook food. So I wouldn't even hazard a guess at that sort of question.
We've already spoken about this. When I'm at the supermarket, I'm a fondler.
Beg your pardon?
I'm a fondler. Like I will, like when I'm buying avocado. When I'm buying an avocado,
Man, I squeeze the avocado. Yeah.
I'm a fondler. Yeah.
Have you ever been arrested?
Because then you bruise the fruit. You've got to be
Of course,
respectful of the fondle.
Look how dead. Look
And
how,
then you use 2 hands. Did you just do that?
Look how-
Kelsey just did this with 2 hands.
Look how
and you've got it. That's the Kelsey slogan. Klepto Kelsey, the fondler.
look how dainty these hands are.
Oh, Kelsey. My
Dainty
goodness
at all.
gracious me.
Oh, wow.
We've really descended into the depths. Brother Adam, have you got
Yes.
something for show and tell?
Yes, I do. So, you know, all these people who are gamers. This is
What the hell's
the
that?
Galaxy Invader.
It's kind of like an...
It's like Space Invaders, a handheld Space Invaders.
Hold it up to
game.
your camera. Hold it right out in front.
Yeah, that's cool.
So very
Nathan
cool.
would love that.
Yeah, we had a pop culture sale, but my pick was this,
That's really cool.
and this is a genuine Wonder Woman backpack, right? And
That's
this
pretty
is
cool.
1978 and marked as such.
That is pretty cool.
Fantastic little thing. But the weirdest thing.
What's it worth?
It's probably worth $100, $150. But this is what you're going to want to have a look at.
Okay, I love show and tell.
And this is what we call brand new collectibles, right?
Yeah.
So this is from I think it's from 2011, and it's just a little figurine by a company called Cause, and this is it here.
What is
Right?
it?
It's just a figurine. It's just like a figurine. It's been made by an artist. It's been designed by an artist. It's just a bit of plastic. What do you reckon that sold for last night?
I don't even know what it is.
I don't even know what it is.
All right, this is the box that comes in.
Yeah, I don't want to know about the box.
What's
you
the figurine? What character is that?
It's
Is it
it's just a made up character. It's called a Cause companion. There it is. There.
I've never heard of this in my
Never
life.
heard of
Okay.
it. How much is it?
$2,000 it sold for.
No way!
$2,000.
I could shit that.
Now, Luke, describe it for Granny.
$2,000.
Describe it for Granny Sue.
Granny, see, you know the famous statue called the Thinker?
Yes.
Remember the Dobie Gillis show?
Yes.
It looks like 2 of them back to back and then entangled.
Yeah.
Sometimes I sit and think. Sometimes I sit and stink.
Yeah.
Brother Adam, from your brand new high-tech studio, EHVA, Evans Hastings.
Evans
Valuers.
Hastings, Valuers and Auctioneers. Get online, have a look what we've got, and also get on my socials. What's it honestly worth? Have a look on Instagram. There's always stuff going on.
Before you go, Brother Adam and Granny Sue, Nikki and I learnt a word of the week while we were in casino. And Kelsey says that this word is very common, and she even believes it's in a dictionary somewhere, the Urban Dictionary. What was that word, Kelsey? And you got to spell it, okay? Because I'm going to type it in.
You'll know this word.
Put it into a sentence.
That's chuggy.
Chuggy. And? Is a slang term used to describe things that are out of date, uncool, or trying too hard to be trendy. It often often refers to lifestyle trends, clothing, or habits from the early 2010s that are no longer fashionable. Chuggy, Chuggy, our word of the week.
Yeah, chuggy.
That's it.
Okay. Kelsey, while I've got you, I was taught this on the weekend. What does this mean?
Granny Sue, he's got his
I don't know.
thumb and his middle finger, and he's
A little bit.
and he's
clock it.
Oh,
that
that's too young for me. I wouldn't have known
Yeah,
that.
right.
I don't know what
even Wonder Boy didn't know what it was.
I don't know what that is either, Adam. So
Anyway.
it's a good time to say goodbye. And please,
bye.
We don't want to see you for another week because that was Chuggy. Thank you, folks, very, very much for listening and being part of episode 131. We love you all. And please leave us a message, 0291289311. And Millennial, keep that big bear of a brown jacket on.
I will.
And spring is on the way.
Yes. And do you have a thought of the day?
Thought of the day, it's just another observation. I'll just move it over so I'm looking. Yep. It's just an observation, really. By working your ass off diligently for 8 hours a day for dreadful money, do that, and one day you might get to be the boss. And then you get to be the boss, and you work your ass off diligently for 22 hours a day for next to no money.
Is that your encouraging thought of the day?
That's all I got. Okay. I'm gonna go and have a sit down.
Bye.